Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by Peter Martinez. Yeah, it's us today. Here on the show that brings you everything coming out of the world of movies and more. And we've got, I would say, some things that we've needed to get off our chests for a while. George Miller's latest film, Furiosa, has been a thing since, I want to say, Memorial Weekend. And it's fitting that we're recording this now on Labor Day weekend, which is
it was really intentional.
It was intentional, that's for sure. We always meant to have a review months later for seemingly no reason whatsoever. So we're gonna be discussing Furiosa today. I also want to mention a couple of things here and there, but the main thing today is Aliens, which at this point has been out in theaters for 3 weeks. So again, we're not necessarily in a rush to get these reviews out here. We want to give you the best that we possibly can, and here we are. Of course, the other reason
this
being
is our best.
This is the best.
We're so sorry.
Yeah, this is the best. And the thing is, I don't think anybody else saw Alien Romulus. David, as a matter of fact, told me he hasn't seen any Alien movies, or maybe he hasn't seen them all. I can't recall what it is that he said. So there is that.
Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, who cares, right? I mean, we got you. So we got the main show here. What was it? Oh yeah. Kyle had since seen Deadpool and Wolverine. Mm-hmm. He shared with us a review. There's a lot of subject matter there that I could touch. Not the review itself, just in
Kyle?
terms of, yeah, but I'm not gonna get into.
You don't want to touch Kyle?
Yeah, let's not bother with that. So that's gonna be our show today on Red Spotlight number 488. Now, cue to Peter's face of disgust that we've been doing this for 488 shows, and there we are. There it is. And now it's gone. All right, let's go ahead and get started today. We're gonna jump straight into a couple of things here. We're gonna primarily focus a lot on Alien, and that involves Ridley Scott today. But we should take a moment to acknowledge something that happened rather unexpectedly over the week. Apple kind of like dropped the director's cut of a movie that's almost a year old. Peter, you and I went to go see Napoleon about 10 months ago. It was October. It was like November-ish, I think. We saw.
I can't even tell you.
You can't even. No, like I know. I remember it because we did a double feature that day. We saw Napoleon and we saw
Holy
Saltburn.
shit, did we?
We saw Saltburn immediately
we did.
after. Yeah,
We did.
so and the thing is, we saw Napoleon first. So when we saw Saltburn, that's all you can focus on. So yeah, it may have been washing away what that experience was, but Napoleon came out, people saw it, and people weren't terribly fond of it. We had a review on the show, obviously. You weren't a part of it because you could not be there. Alexis and David were on the show, and they did see Napoleon. And generally speaking, there weren't too many negative things. I think we all enjoyed our time. Nobody was in love with the film, but I think our main issues with what the problem is it wasn't a complete movie. There was a lot that you could almost feel in real time that it was just kind of like gliding past because of assuredly some kind of corporate mandated runtime, and that was it. Alexis and I had one of the issues in which we had, which was a direct result of the film having to be cut down, was Vanessa Kirby not really being in it as much as she really should have. You know, that was a main issue. And I want to, before I get into any more of the director's cut, because I did see it, you did not. You're going to see it at some point. I wish this would have come out a lot sooner. It feels like, well, if we're being real with you, I almost wish this was the theatrical version of the movie. But
also, it could be. It's not that long.
That's the thing too. It's
3 hours.
There've been longer movies. I'm still like, how long exactly was Flower Moon? 3 hours and 26 minutes?
Yeah.
So
you could have.
I feel like it wasn't 4 hours.
Yeah.
It wasn't 4 hours long. If it was over 4 hours, maybe we can have a discussion of like, okay, All right, but it wasn't close to 4 hours. It was about...
the old 1920s black and white cut is 5 hours.
That's correct. And so I remember we had a discussion that
only
day
a
about...
portion of his life.
Exactly. So, oh god, that's incredible. But like you had talked to me about like the history of Napoleon and cinema and other movies made about him, and how, as you just mentioned, there's this other 5-hour movie that didn't even get through all of it. And one of in this like figure,
maybe at most a fourth of his life. I think it's even less.
So this figure, my impression is kind of hard to get right, especially because there's so much that can be perfectly translated into a cinematic experience. And Ridley Scott, we all felt was kind of a really good hand to do so, considering the films that he has made. I don't think either of us walked away terribly impressed, but we kind of dug a lot of what was in there. But we were just kind of the same mind where we can't really say how we feel about it until we see the actual director's cut, because, as has been mentioned, the director's cuts for Ridley are unanimously superior to the theatrical versions.
Like, a lot of people talk about his Blade Runner director's cut, but the Kingdom of Heaven director's cut, that's night and day.
I think I haven't seen it, but I know the stories where it came out, it was kind of trashed, and then the cut came, and it was a whole new movie.
Yeah. And because this is similarly a historical epic,
right?
In my mind, it's like, okay, maybe. I was like, I need to see that director's cut.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, and it kind of came and it went, and I feel like people weren't terribly wowed, and that's why it kind of like fizzled away from anyone's like mind as far as like, you know, the conversation was concerned. I mean, here we are in this timeline, Joaquin Phoenix playing Napoleon Bonaparte. No one gave a fuck, but he plays the Joker and he gets an Academy Award. That's the reality that we live in case anybody forgot and wasn't like paying attention to that. And also Ridley's an individual who himself, even in recent years, has kind of been like not brushed away, but just like there's some stuff that he's made recently that's actually worthy. Like, all of us were astonished that The Last Duel was just, no one cared. And that
was really good. Yeah.
And that was like one of his better movies. Like not just one of his better movies. That was like maybe one of his best movies. Like, it's hard to find a flaw in that one, where it's pretty easy to find flaws in most of Ridley's recent work. That one was like kind of untouchable and kind of perfect for the timing that it came out in. And yet, crickets. Just
Ridley, he's that working director. He will plus a film, you know, based on the script. So I think if you give him a so-so script, you'll get a better than average made film. But a lot of his films depend on the script. He's already like an A+ working director. It just depends.
Yeah, and that year, no one cared to pay attention to one of his movies because the other one starred Adam Driver and Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
And that one wasn't very good. Like,
but again, I think that the issue with that one was the script.
Yeah.
That's what you can say about all of his films.
Yeah.
The bad ones.
That's anyway. The main thing. So I watched the director's cut on Apple TV Plus. They kind of announced it out of nowhere. That, oh yeah, by the way, it's up on our site today, so go enjoy it. So cool. They even had Ridley do a little video for it. Okay. I just find it so entertaining how anytime they put a camera in front of him, it's always just like pure chaos, and I love it. Just like even recently during the press tour for Alien Romulus, Letterboxd asked him his 4 favorite movies, and he included one of his own, Blade Runner, and I was like, yeah, you know what, you get to do that. Come on.
He's like, well, yeah, it's a great film. It was like, yeah, okay. He's not wrong.
I mean,
He's not saying anything wrong. Yeah.
No. I remember there was this hilarious clip when he was doing the Last Duel press tour. and one reporter was just like genuinely like sharing the perspectives and interpretations of some of her friends, and Ridley was like, "Are they fucking stupid?" I mean, I don't know what the context was, but like he was being serious. So like he's kind of a treasure in a weird way. Like I mean, I shouldn't even. Last year's press tour for Napoleon, when he was just like going to war with every historian ever, like you weren't there, shut the fuck up, basically. You know?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Like, I think his biggest films he did when he was in his 40s. I think he did Alien when he was in his 40s, and he didn't give a shit then.
No.
This is like 85-year-old Ridley Scott. Like he does not give any shits. The funniest thing, I saw a quote when they're asking like, oh, like, because he didn't consult with Ridley, with Russell Crowe for Gladiator 2. And he's like, yeah, I hope he doesn't feel bad about it. I mean, he was fucking dead. What was I going to ask him? Like, and it's like, he's not wrong. His character's dead. It's not. He's not gonna bring it back to life. It's not one of those kind of movies.
Russell Crowe, yeah, that's strange. Even last year, there was what was he saying? There was a question that was asked of him, and he was like, I don't know about like, he was asked a question about like Marty, because Marty Scorsese is in his 80s, and he had this big interview about like his mortality and how much death is on his mind. And they asked that of Ridley, because Ridley's older than Marty, and Ridley's like, I don't give a shit about that. I don't think about that. I just work. I mean, in the same time that it took Marty to make one movie, I've made 4, is what he said.
That's the thing. Marty's like contemplating, and Ridley's just like, nah, I got this movie, and then I can squeeze in 2 more after, and then we'll see if I can do a series. Like
he's cranking them out. So Gladiator 2 is coming out this year. So think about Gladiator 2. You've got Napoleon that came out.
Have you seen that trailer?
I did actually get a chance to see it when we watched Alien Romulus. It played. That was my first time watching. I think you may have stepped away, which is why you don't recall seeing the trailer. Okay. So as for our listeners here, a long-standing thing is I don't watch trailers, evidently, until I'm forced to. And when I'm in the movies, I'm forced to watch trailers. And so when we watched Romulus, I got to see the trailer for Gladiator 2. I also got to see the trailer for Joker Folie à Deux. It's a whole different thing, that may come back around in a bit. Hilariously enough, kind of also entwined with this discussion because it involves Joaquin Phoenix, who's also connected to Ridley Scott and Gladiator, weirdly enough. Yeah, I did get the chance to see the trailer for Gladiator 2. I mean, it looks what I would expect the movie to look like.
He's just so good at staging action and set pieces, and I think that's one of the things that impresses. Like with Napoleon, he just effortlessly stages massive battles.
It's like secondhand to him.
Yeah, he just kind of does it, and it's like he's like, yeah, I did it, and we were under budget. We came in under budget and finished 5 days early, and he's just like, yeah, that's what I do.
I mean, he was even able to have some unexpected sequences that were incredible in The Last Duel itself.
Oh yeah, and that's like a less that's
action heavy movie.
Yeah, it's more specific to like 3 characters, whereas Napoleon is very sweet. Napoleon had maybe the single most interesting life, a human has had in human history that we know of. There's a reason, because even Kubrick, I think, wanted to make a Napoleon film, and I think his like neuroticism of like was all encompassing, and he could never get it done because there's just so much to him.
Yeah, I mean, you could even argue that there's enough for like 2 or 3 films. That's just a lot, or even more than that, honestly. Yeah. Yes, Gladiator 2 looks incredible. People as in our space, in circles are very much anticipating the film and seeing how it turns out. And I mean specifically from what I've been hearing on the chatter, because right now, going on the film festivals are in full swing, if you're not aware of that. So Venice is happening, Telluride is happening. Toronto will be in a few weeks. It's September, so it's a month of festivals. And so we're beginning to hear of names and people who are going to be contenders. And no one has seen, I don't think, Gladiator 2 just yet, but people are anticipating great things from it, are hoping anyway to get great things from it. And of course, Paul Mescal being the lead in the film, people generally are interested in his career as well. So we're all looking forward to it. While we're on that topic real quick, I did see the trailer for Joker Folie à Deux 2, whatever you want to call it. This is the thing also. Peter and I are not fans of that film whatsoever.
No,
like
that
not,
one, no.
No, not
it was
even
David's,
a little bit.
I think, number one of that year, though.
Maybe it might have been. I don't know. But he genuinely seems to prefer the copycat Scorsese over the Scorsese film that came out that year, from what I'm aware of. So make of that what you will.
David, your response?
He doesn't have a response right now. Evidently. But I remember when the Joker 2 sequel was announced, and then there was the seeming implication that it would be a musical, and we were all like, okay. We were all kind of finding humor in it, because what a great way to put the middle finger up to a lot of the hardcore fans of the first one. And let's be real here, because this might be misinterpreted. We were really just kind of bewildered and put off by the fact that in the way that people reacted to liking Joker, where there was like, who knew movies could be made like this? Or like...
Yeah, it was the first time I ever felt like a film snob, because it's like... man, like, this is how you feel. Like, I have the entire history of film to show you. Like, you're gonna love movies.
And it's like, but we just said, like, hey, we don't really like the movie at all. But like, I was confounded. Like, okay, it's one thing to say that when it's warranted. There is nothing in that movie that warrants that kind of reaction. And then it got even worse, because that was the least of our problems. Because that movie not only ended up grossing $1 billion worldwide, but it won 2 Academy Awards for score and for actor, and it was nominated for 11 Academy Awards. It was nominated for more awards than the Martin Scorsese film that was out that year, which, by the way, Todd Phillips basically stole or mimicked 2 Scorsese 80s movies and put them together to make the Joker.
Yeah.
In a clumsily, like, incoherent manner.
To me, that was the thing. It was... to me, it was just a poorly thought out mishmash of early Scorsese. And just sort of incoherent in its thematic purpose.
It was like what were you saying there? Like, you weren't saying anything. You were trying to say something, but maybe you... I don't know. Were they trying to say something? I think they were trying to.
But I think it's just incoherent in a way that hits with people. And I think you saw that from the Joker memes that came out of it.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, I'm not going to say Joaquin Phoenix's performance was bad.
No.
But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it feels like we don't look for good performances. We look at performances from certain types of films, right?
Yeah.
Like, your goofiest superhero movie of the past 5 years probably has as good or better performances in it, but it would never get nominated, and I wouldn't expect it to either.
No.
Yeah.
But then again, I wouldn't expect something like this to get nominated, much less win either, which is why it is confounding. And
it almost feels like Oscar bait.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I don't know if there's much difference between that film and, like, Green Book. in the way it's kind of reaching for purpose's sake. I don't know.
Yeah. I think what people just gleam onto it is the performance of Joaquin Phoenix, and because that works so well, they just kind of go with the rest. I've only seen the movie once, and I'll never watch it again. I was, just really put off by it.
I don't even think it's terrible. It's just like...
It's not terrible, but I don't think it's good. And I feel like my feelings are much more negative in large part because of how beloved it was by people and who were like holding it up as like one of the best of the year. And I'm just sorry, but I'm a petty bitch, and I'm gonna be paying attention to things like, hey, there's a Marty movie and a Tarantino movie, and other great movies that came out that year, but you're gonna be like, well, who are they? Joker's the best. Go fuck yourself. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna be upset about that, you know?
But also, that's me going like I'm being fair. Like, I thought, as much as I thought it was silly for something like Black Panther to be nominated for Best Picture,
you were more than fair with rationalizing why it belonged there. But then Joker is a different story.
No, I'm saying this is silly too. Like, it's like, I mean, it's definitely shot better. Like, from a just basic filmmaking visual sensibility, it's better. But it's as much a film where it's like, I don't view it as this like, oh, this is, because you know, sometimes I'll be like, oh, we're watching a movie and it feels sort of like a collection of like insurance commercials strung together versus like, oh, this actually feels like a film. This isn't that much better. Like, it's not.
We'll tell that to the industry, which nominated Todd Phillips for Best Director for that movie.
It's the Joker, baby.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So here's the thing. A sequel is coming out, and it's going to be... is it going to be a complete musical, or are they only going to have, like, aspects that are musical adjacent? That's one thing, you know?
Okay, what doesn't help me feel like the movie had much thematic purpose is also listening to Todd Phillips talk about the film. Like the last film of the upcoming film, because he's like, you know, it's not a musical. It's they just, you know, they break into song, but they're talking about their emotions and stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's a fucking musical. That's the definition.
Did he really say that way?
I can't. That wasn't word for word, but it was basically that.
Well, that doesn't inspire any kind of confidence. In fact, that's kind of like, well, that tracks for what I already feel how you are, and what you did with the first film, and only just builds a bridge to this new one, not necessarily really being that much better.
It's a lot of you know what it reminds me of? It's that like remember that Pepsi commercial where like Kylie Jenner is like at a protest and she's walking down the protest and then she hands the cop the Pepsi and everyone's smiling and laughing. And everyone made fun of it because it's kind of like vapid and empty and just kind of using the aesthetics of protest and meaning something to sell a product. That's what these Joker movies kind of come off like to me. Like they sort of take the aesthetics of things that seem important, but they never really come together fully to mean anything. Not coherently. It's like people that put like Jesus imagery in their films because Jesus is deep, but there's no like motivation behind it specifically. Yeah.
So, here's the thing. Without anybody having seen it, and maybe only because it includes, well, not only, it includes Lady Gaga now, a former nominee, and because the last movie was nominated for 11 awards, everyone already has it like as an immediate lock for picture, director, best supporting actress, and actor again, even though Joaquin already won.
I can see him getting nominated again, and me just feeling like, what the fuck.
And I feel like here's my general my thing is like I don't know if I'm going to be able to be that involved this year if this is the state of things, because between this and Dune 2, this is the thing. In the same breath, all these other people were like, well, no one's talking about Dune anymore. But yeah, Joker's a lock. You can count on it. Write it all the way to the bank. And then even one was like, well, what if Warner Brothers just like puts all their campaign money into Joker instead of Dune?
I can 100% see that happen. 100%. Yeah. It's funny. I saw the trailer, and I don't know if you felt this. It just felt like the psychopathic A Star Is Born. Like, am I wrong? It felt like that.
No, you're not wrong.
The trailer, like,
yeah,
it's like this dude that's already famous for being crazy, and then he meets this girl and fall in love, and it's specifically Lady Gaga, and now they're becoming famous together, but not for singing, it's for being crazy. But there's also going to be singing this time. Yeah. I guess I am interested to know what the film tries to be and tries to say, and like
knowing that it won't get there.
Well, just knowing how I feel about the first film, and I just kind of walk away going like, I don't know that any of this comes together to really mean anything. It just feels like a collage of things people feel is, important or something.
Of course, just thinking right now, I know that everyone in our chat was like throwing those tweets at me about The Fabelmans and West Side Story, and how people were like, well, for one thing, it was like right now on Twitter X, people are like, well, how come these movies flopped? And yeah, but I'm just like remembering, oh my God, this Joker's musical wannabe is gonna make all the money.
Oh yeah,
and the real musicals just.
But it's got Lady Gaga.
And then I'm not even sure how much hope there is for Wicked. Not even in terms of people being interested, but I don't know. It's hard to have faith in the movie like that when.
Wicked feels like it's too little, too late. I feel like the height of Wicked was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And also the movie looks lame and shitty. I'm just gonna be honest.
No, it doesn't look great. Like the color is gone. Like a movie like that should have color in it. And like I think even Alexis pointed it out in our last conversation with like, why even make the movies if they're gonna make them look so overly digital and CGI like that? Like it's just so unappealing. Yeah. And on top of that, okay, well, where else do we look for any kind of confidence or inspiration? Well, the director Lin previously did In the Heights. Okay, granted, but In the Heights is In the Heights. It's not the best thing ever made. Mm-hmm. But they split this into two movies. This is really Wicked Part 1, and I'm like, what?
Also, I realized I kind of didn't know what Wicked was, and after seeing the trailer, it's like, oh, it's YA Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy about that.
No.
I'll be honest, I'm not.
I mean, there's always a chance it could be good. We can't hold like final say on it, but like early indicators aren't strong. Yeah.
If I like a movie, I will never lie about that,
No.
Because there's been movies where I'm like, this is gonna be shit, and then I watch it, and I'm like, you know what? Pretty good.
It happens, people. It happens.
Yeah, for sure. This is
people,
all based on what we've seen so far.
People were like, now granted, you maintained that there were aspects of Timothée Chalamet's Wonka performance that you still didn't care for, but putting that to the side, people were like not having any kind of confidence in that movie whatsoever from the moment that it was announced to trailers coming out. Yeah. And nobody foresaw not only how good it was, but also how good it would do.
Yeah.
So you never know.
But the only reason that movie is good is because of the director.
Yeah, Paul King. Yeah, for sure.
Because it's like, oh, Wonka origin story movie, kill myself, like blow my brains out. Fuck that. And then the trailer didn't sell me on confidence, but it was pretty good because of who made it. You know, he injected his charm into it, and it really worked.
Yeah, director. Surprisingly, I think Marvel needs to realize this, but a director can go a long way in making a difference. So anyway, fuck Joker. I'm not looking forward to it. It's gonna make me be suicidal. So that's a nice preview of the coming winter.
Ask you,
yes.
Are you interested in Beetlejuice?
I actually am, only because this might not actually be terrible. Tim Burton's latest output has been universally destroyed and savaged. Mm-hmm. And
rightfully so. I think
I haven't seen any of his movies lately, but if you have, I believe it. But I think this might be different. This might actually be pretty okay from early indications, and so I'm curious. I've never seen the original Beetlejuice, as a matter of fact, because I've always just been so put off. How are
we still doing this?
How am I not canceled already?
Yeah.
How have I not been replaced? As host of the show.
David?
Yeah,
isn't
exactly.
He talking? Get him in here. I know he's seen Beetlejuice.
No, we've been through this many times. There've been plenty of things.
That's why I'm saying, how are we still doing this?
When I was younger, again, like the same way that Alexis would avoid. Shut the fuck up. It's not been decades. When Alexis would avoid films just by the cover art of a VHS tape, and that it would scare her.
Yeah.
Same again. I guess Alexis's are like, intertwined that
Pussies?
way. When I would look at the look of a character design or the look of something, and I would be like, ill, and I just didn't bother with it. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, I tell you, anytime the Iron Giant was on Cartoon Network, I would be like, change the channel, because it would just be on and repeat.
One of the best animated films ever made.
This is not in question. I'm just sharing with you like tendencies that we have. I'm talking about 8. I'm literally talking about that.
Yeah,
that age.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I was gonna say. To be fair, I was like that with all of anime. Do you see big eyes and the similar faces, and the weird choppiness of it? It just threw me off as a kid, and I wasn't having it.
You see, so it happens.
Anything anime, I kind of avoided.
Yeah, Beetlejuice looked disgusting and scary, so I was like, no, thank you, bye, and that was the end of it.
Your job between now and Thursday is to watch it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've been trying to catch up with as many works as possible. Of different people.
Well, now those are on the back burner.
So, well, not necessarily. So I was watching some Ridley Scott movies, capped off with Napoleon. I was watching some James Cameron movies.
Oh, you went through all of Alien too, yeah. And James Cameron.
Yeah, so for the first time I watched movies like The Abyss and True Lies, which and The Terminator. I'd never seen that one.
Seen the Terminator?
No. I only saw Judgment Day in July for the first time. Believe it or not. So like I hadn't seen them at all.
You started with Judgment Day?
It wasn't by choice. Eric and Carlos put it on while I was visiting them. I was like, okay, I'll watch it. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I hadn't seen a lot of his movies.
Small aside, it's interesting how the first Alien and the first Terminator, I think, are pretty strictly horror films.
Yeah.
People talk about that with Alien. They don't talk about that with Terminator. Terminator's a slasher.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's interesting the way people don't think about it that way, but it is.
Yeah, I feel like one of my common things in life, and it hilariously proved itself to be true yet again in this situation, where I watched the sequel before I watched the original. So I watched Judgment Day, and it's like this big action masterpiece. Like, it's just like these big set pieces, and it's like, how did they make that movie? And then you go to the first film, and it's just like almost completely different in terms of like what it's doing. And you're right, it is a freaking slap. I mean, I knew of they were telling me in real time, Eric, that the reason why this was a surprising moment is that Arnold was the villain in the first movie and he's the hero in this movie. So I knew of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know of Michael Biehn. I didn't until I watched they mentioned him, but they don't. And there was a cutaway scene. Oh yeah, I watched the special edition of Judgment Day.
Oh yeah, because they have those scenes with him in the special edition.
Yeah,
but in the original cut, they don't. He's not in it at all.
No, they take it away. I've been also watching a lot of different cuts too. I watched the special edition of Terminator 2 and the special edition, or I guess extended cut of Aliens, which are really interesting. But the point is, I've been watching so many different works. I love them all. True Lies was hilarious, and
it's
also
crazy, yeah.
Isn't it?
It's a weird film, kind of, but it
works. It works. James Cameron just knows how to make a damn good movie, no matter what it is.
It feels almost like a Michael Bay film.
Almost
like a Michael Bay script. I feel like, but James Cameron infuses, because he doesn't go as balls to the wall in certain ways as Michael Bay. It still works.
And really on the flip side, I'd also, as you mentioned, was watching the Alien movies, so rewatching them. I had previously, I want to say that at the time that Alien Covenant came out or Blade Runner came out, well, it was the same year. Covenant and 2049 came out 2017. Around that time, I want to say I was first introduced to the Alien movies. Aliens. And you had handpicked the ones to watch for me, which would be, at that point, be Prometheus. And then we watched Covenant. I purposefully avoided, and I want to say you even told me to not even bother with Alien 3 or Alien Rebirth, Reborn, Alien, what was it called?
Resurrection. There are some like taglines given to movies that I kind of just hate, and they use them a lot, and I'm like, just don't they almost put me off towards films, right? And like Resurrection is one of those where it's just it just comes off like cheap, and I don't like it. There's other ones too. I can't think of myself in my head where I'm like,
And I'm so sorry we went so far away from Napoleon at this point, but I saw the movie again. I saw the extended director's cut, and I have to say, it is far better. It is actually a complete piece of work because, again, the biggest issue was. The theatrical cut felt like you were watching a greatest hits version and not the entire thing. And they add in, like, literally everything that was added back in here fixes another issue, which was there lacked a consistent sense of flow and pace because we were moving from one place in time to the next, that it just felt so abrupt. The things that are added back in here make it feel seamless. And there's even added benefit in terms of character and context for what is happening in the history and time. Like the whole thing in the first half of the movie, his rise to power, the coup d'etat that he performs, like there's more scenes in there added in as to like the contemplation behind that and his motivations behind that. There's more scenes added into the love that is born between him and Josephine. Like extended sequences here that are just like, how do you take this away from the film? The whole introduction to Josephine, like we begin the movie with like her. I think we may have seen it. Do you recall in the theatrical cut? Do we see her as like being let out of prison, or do we meet her? Okay, that's crazy to me.
The implication is that she was ready to be executed.
Yeah, that's what happened. So we see like a good. Almost 3 to 4 minutes of footage before we even get to that point in the extended version. Like we see her getting arrested because she's found out to be a noble family, and then we even see her living life in prison. Like there's a whole other thing that gets us to get inside her head more and primes us for what's going to happen in the next couple of years in the film. Like I can't believe you just take that away completely. There's more as far as Waterloo is concerned to there's even a sequence in the movie where like, oh yeah, he conquered Italy, and there was a sequence where he's at the Vatican and the Pope greets him. That was taken away completely. So like everything that's added back in here is building character and kind of fixing seemingly every single flaw with the theatrical cut. It's more rounded. You get a better sense. I don't know if there was more intended to be put in here. I think maybe because they were saying about a 4-hour cut, so there may be even more stuff that didn't make it into this version. But as you mentioned, this is a big person in history, and there's just not enough. There's too much for one singular experience. But this one might do it. It is lengthy. Like, you do feel it is a long movie. But I do feel like if you're gonna pick to watch one over the other, one is a far superior experience. And might I also add, it made a big difference watching this with the damn lighting being the way that it should be. When Peter and I watched this movie a year ago, the projector was fucking up, and we could barely see anything.
It was dim. It was a dim picture.
Like,
yeah. The film itself is already kind of dim.
Yeah.
But the lighting, I could tell it was a whole other problem with like the projection of it.
Yeah, that couldn't have been intentional what was happening, because if it was, that would be like an Alien Requiem situation, Predator versus Alien versus
Nothing
Predator.
will be as bad as that. Nothing.
I need to see clips and see for myself. Like, everybody says the exact same thing about the lighting in that movie.
It's genuinely incredible. Like, I've never seen another movie have that problem to the extent that movie does. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So that's the director's cut of Napoleon. We'll wrap back around to Alien in a few minutes, but before that, I do want to get into a little bit of George Miller here. Because Furiosa, you can also load up the review, not the review, the synopsis on your phone for Furiosa, because we have yet to review it. But before we get to that, I just before we logged on here to talk about this stuff, I had meant to, and I finally got a chance to squeeze in and watch 3,000 Years of Longing.
You did?
His film from 2022, which includes Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton, and is another one of those movies in recent years by a great artist that no one cared about. So there's that. I gotta tell you, everything about that movie is just what I look for in cinema these days.
It's really interesting.
It's really, really. I was grabbed in from the first like narration, and I could definitely see how that influenced Furiosa. Even how the structure of that film all the way through, with the inclusion of the narration. I was transfixed. I'm sorry to say. Like, I understand that there were criticisms of like some CGI that's not so great. Okay, whatever. But like, I was kind of glued in the entire time. I could not stop myself from watching it. Like, the score is incredible. The acting is just superb. It's really intimate. Despite the fact that, there are these like disparate stories that are, spanning across all these centuries or whatever. I kind of bought it. And to me, it's like definitely what I look forward to in movies these days. But I feel like it's another reminder of like what I'm looking forward in movies is not necessarily what most do. And I get the sense that I think a lot of people would watch this and not care very much for it.
Yeah, I think most people might watch and be like, that was weird, that was dumb. And they just kind of walk away with that. Whereas it's very George Miller, especially after watching Furiosa. He finds a lot of beauty in the sort of mythic storytelling. And you could already see that from the original Mad Max films, but here it's really on display. And sort of what we give in the way that we tell each other stories and stuff like that. It's very well done. I like a lot of it. If there's any criticism, it's just maybe the chemistry between the two leads could have been better. Yeah. I think it works great for the first 3/4, but when you hit the ending, there's sort of an emotional beat that really has to hit that I don't think hits fully because I don't buy completely into their chemistry.
I agree with you. I was definitely wanting to feel a bit more about that. So I could that would have been like the final thing Where if they had landed that, I would have been like, I love this completely.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing that was missing. But I think it gets a lot of points for just its creativity and originality and uniqueness. And then also just it gets a lot of points for just being damn interesting. I was seeing Brendan Hodges, I saw an old review of his saying that people were comparing the movie to another film that you and I happen to quite like, but most do not fuck with at all. Cloud Atlas.
Oh yeah,
many years ago.
yeah. There is a bit of Cloud Atlas in that, and that's another movie where it's like, yeah, not everything works.
No,
but every swing is just
Yeah.
so hard. Even now, like doing stuff that I guarantee they wouldn't do today, which is like make everyone different races.
Yeah, that was.
Which worked sometimes and did not work at all other times, like visually. Sometimes I was like, oh, I didn't even notice, and other times I'm like, damn, I definitely noticed. Not great. But there's something just so earnest about it that I think is really awesome, and it's something that you love to see in filmmaking. Yeah.
It's just interesting stories, and they succeed. Both Cloud Atlas and 3,000 Years Long succeed because they're just they're doing their own thing. And most movies are not really touching that space.
They're variations off each other.
Right.
That's what a lot of Hollywood is. You know, for all the talk about AI replacing scripts and CG and stuff like that, the easiest job it could replace is executives. Because all executives
Don't tell that to Bob Iger.
I know. Bob Iger could easily be more replaced with freaking AI than anyone else in the company. Because they just put in algorithms. And it's just like, it's like Inside Out 2. It made all the money in the world. It's crazy how much money Inside Out 2 has made. But it's also like, yeah, the most obvious choice you can make. Toy Story 5, you know. I'm still waiting for that Monsters, Inc. 3, technically, too. Like, it's gonna happen, it's gonna come, but like an AI could figure this out. Like you don't need someone in a suit that's making millions of dollars every year to make these decisions.
No.
Yeah.
But on the whole, going back to this discussion, if you're interested, I think both those films would be a great double feature. Cloud Atlas and 2,000 Years, you know?
I love films that are about not necessarily film, but storytelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the act of it and sort of the humanity to it. I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel with you about the dynamic there not being great. It's good enough and it works still, but it could be a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's one that I might find myself coming back to and revisiting, and who knows how it'll age over time. The one component and X factor here that we don't talk about as much when we review movies, and we have been reviewing movies for as many years as we have, is the notion that how it ages is never really clear until you look up and you realize years have come and gone. And I think, like, if, for instance, at the time, Cloud Atlas was not necessarily something that was well received, may not necessarily be well received even to this very day, but you never know. There could be a time where it could be much better appraisal of it. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into Furiosa. Peter.
Furiosa. Directed by Jorge Miller. Fury is born. As the world fell, young Furiosa is snatched from the green place of many mothers and falls into the hands of a great biker horde led by the warlord Dementus. Sweeping through the wasteland, they come across the citadel presided over by the immortal Joe. While the two tyrants war for dominance, Furiosa must survive many trials as she puts together the means to find her way home. What are you watching, Ghost Hunters?
I'd rather not say because it's not really my choice. Every time it's Hell's Kitchen. I think it's Hell's Kitchen. I don't even know what it is, but I don't know why it decides to turn on that fucking show. You can tell how much this irritates me. It just decides to put that one thing on. And I don't know why it thinks I want to watch that. And then just like to explain what's happening here, the AirPlay just turns off. So, yeah. You were saying?
No, that was it. That was the whole movie.
Okay. So, Mad Max Fury Road.
Mm-hmm.
Good movie, right?
I mean, I would say so, yes.
No, I had not seen this movie in a long time. Yeah. I had not rewatched it in like the original time I watched it, which was back in 2015, before we watched Furiosa. But I definitely went back to go watch Mad Max for sure after Furiosa. My honest opinion about where we are with this is that Furiosa is very easily one of the best movies of the year. Even more than that, I feel like it is a work of art. It is the kind of blockbuster we need more of. This and Dune Part 2 for sure of. It is wholly under the vision of George Miller. And it is a really interestingly told story in very unexpected ways. I feel like once again, there was character and there was themes here. Not that there wasn't that in Mad Max Fury Road, and I love Mad Max Fury Road, and I love it even more because of Furiosa, to be honest with you. But I feel like we have another situation in which like the whole world guzzling extreme orgasms left and right over Fury Road, and then Furiosa comes out all these years later, and I hear nothing but like complaints and criticisms and disappointment, and I'm just like, I feel so out of step with what these people want sometimes, because I feel like there is such special work going on in Furiosa. Anya Taylor-Joy, I mean, she's never not great, but she finds something here in Furiosa that is transfixing. Chris Hemsworth perhaps turns in the single best performance of his career as Dementus, and a character who, again, you just can't take your eyes off of. Dementus. Does it look as good?
Dementus.
Does it look as good as Mad Max Fury Road? No. What can? It's really an unfair standard. I understand that it's George Miller. I understand that there may have been people who are on his team who are like, well, are we taking too much, blue screen here and not enough practical, yada, 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 yada. He's almost 80 years old. I'm sorry. I can understand the appeal of not wanting to be in the fucking desert the entire time while making this movie. That being said, a film that perhaps was way more reliant on VFX than Fury Road, for sure, yes. But why are we making such a big fucking fuss over that one where 99% of the blockbuster filmmaking coming out these days has visual effects that are the equivalent and sometimes designed to look like fucking dog diarrhea. With absolute blandness and no amount of color put anywhere near it. I realize this review has just become a rant at this point, but
that's every review you've ever done.
But I went back to watch this film 2 more times in the theater. It was just one of those movies where it comes out and it just kind of grabs a hold of you and you want to go back and revisit it, and you love every component about it much more so with every rewatch. And I feel like, to me, something else that it's doing is it's kind of retroactively making Fury Road an even better movie. I think Fury Road and Furiosa complement each other and are in many ways are 2 pieces of one whole, the same way that I see Dune Part 1 and Part 2, as a matter of fact. And if we're just looking at prequel standards, this may be the best prequel I've ever seen. And it helps because, as we know the history, Furiosa was definitely already in George Miller's mind at the time of making Fury Road. And you can definitely tell. That being said, it's one of the best movies of the year. No one will talk about this by the time the year comes to an end. And that's a shame because it should be recognized. And I feel like whatever
it
issues
should be in the talks for Best Picture.
It's not even a fucking question to me, but it won't be. I get the appeal of Fury Road kind of almost being this silent film. I get it. I love it. I wouldn't change a thing about that. At the same time, I always will respond more so to character, and this one has it in spades. And this is why when we talk about cinema, I would always prefer something like this over Fury Road. But then again, it's like me. I always would prefer an Irishman over Goodfellas. I don't know what it is about me. But
you're saying you like the Irish more than the Italians?
But there's still Italians and... No, that's not what I mean. You kind of... Okay, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying is people seemingly have a harder time appreciating works that are just slower and take more time to get into and have more character, and they're far always preferring the spectacle and the easy stuff that's more entertaining. And I get that's how things work,
because this is such a massive spectacle,
right?
But here's me being the boomer for once. I just think people's attention spans are killed. I think it's hard for people to live today without just constant stimulation to the brain. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I am in any way above that, because I am not. But there's a reason why, especially younger people, can't just sit down and see a movie anymore. Or even at the movie theaters. Like, people have to have their phone out and like interacting with other things. And I really think it sort of shapes what kind of films are successful, because the films that can sort of hit the dopamine, you know, quicker and faster and more intense, as Mr. Lucas would say,
faster, more intense,
are the ones that are more successful, or I think hit harder with audiences. Whereas films that are slower. And not that they're shorter films, they're just slower. Yeah, I'll see people complain like, man, you could have cut off like 30 minutes or something. But it's like, that's crazy, because if you watch any movie made, 20, 30 years ago, this is like fast comparatively. And the further you go back, as far as films go, like the amount of cuts per film just goes higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And yeah.
Well, I mean, can I just share with you, Winona Ryder has been making... Well, she's been in the news lately, I assume, because she's going to be in Beetlejuice. She also did a Criterion Closet video, which I loved. You need to go watch it. She's adorable. She's like, oh my God, this is my church and everything. So I'm already vibing with her. And then she says this, saying that she gets frustrated with some of her younger co-stars that are not interested in movies. And she says, the first thing they say is, how long is it? I just think there was
such an insane thing to me, to complain about the length of a film. Like, if it's good, I'd sit 6 hours and watch it. Like, it doesn't matter to me. No. A good film is a good film.
I just think there was such an abundance. The history of film, the history of photography, it's so rich, and there's so much there. And I don't mean we should go backwards, but I wish and I hope that the younger generation will study that. And of course, people were seeing immediately she was throwing shade at one person in particular, Millie Bobby Brown, who said earlier this year that she doesn't watch movies. She says, I don't watch movies. People come up to me and say, you should definitely watch this movie. It would change your life. And I'm like, how long do I have to sit there for? Because my brain and I don't even like sitting for my own movies.
What's great, the thing is, I think that's very indicative of the average person her age and younger, and maybe even, you know, older.
How many hours of your life are you looking at a screen at fucking TikTok or Instagram or something? You know what? So I'm sorry. They can go to hell with that kind of bullshit mentality here.
The difference is the hits are instant. Like if you're scrolling through TikTok, technically every 6 seconds you're getting that hit.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas with a movie, maybe you got to just take it in for like 20 minutes before something really hits, you know? You just got to absorb it. And like I think about the opening to Furiosa and how it really takes its time.
Yes.
I love it. Like the whole chase. Another director, the first like 15 minutes would have been done in less than 5. But it works so well that it just takes its time with that chase, and it really sets the tone beautifully. But it doesn't surprise me. But you know what? And again, I think it should be necessary for actors to love cinema simply because it'll help your career. Because it doesn't surprise me that Millie Bobby Brown isn't crazy about movies. Because look at the movies she picks to be in. and like, you're going to have a bad time making choices in your career as an actor if you're not, you know, high on film.
Paging Mr. Tom Holland. Mr. Tom Holland, your number's been called. Speaking of who?
I like, not to make any comments about Tom, but it genuinely feels like he's not into movies.
And if he is, maybe not the right kind of movies, because he's picking the wrong people to work with and the wrong projects. Because, I mean, I have to say this. Where is he? Why isn't he in anything? Like, I mean, there are a lot of big movies. He's being a house
husband right now.
Yeah, and hey, that's cool and all. But, like, thinking about your career, like, you did a streaming show and a streaming movie. You're Spider-Man, and you can't get... I mean, there are plenty of roles out there that you could have, like
well,
I could have yes.
Look at his husband Zendaya. She very clearly loves film. There was that
Speaking of challengers, man.
There's an interview with Villeneuve who said like Zendaya was the one who was always behind the camera, you know, trying to learn, she was really into it. And because that's when Spielberg asked, like, who could he see from the cast, like, eventually going on and trying to direct. And so you can tell she's into film in the choices she makes with film.
You know, who else? Timothée Chalamet.
Timmy, too. You can tell they're into it. What's his name? Glenn Powell.
Yeah.
They're making
Paul Mescal.
They're making good choices in their career, and I think a lot of that has to do with having a love of film. Now, it's not 100% guarantee because it's Hollywood, and dreams are broken there more than they're ever made. It doesn't matter how much you love film. You can be shit and end up with a shit career, or be great and end up with a shit career, or be shit and end up with a great career. It's...
you never know.
It's a whizzle, it's a wazzle. Oof.
I mean, you don't necessarily have to be a great actor to have a great career.
Yeah, for sure. But I just genuinely think it helps. I think having that love... You know who I think even also has that? Is, what's her name? The one everyone's crazy about. She was also in Euphoria.
Didn't watch Euphoria.
Okay, she was in that Glenn Powell movie.
Sydney Sweeney?
Yeah, the Sweeney girl. I think the projects she tries to pick as well. I think she's got like a little eye for film as well. I just think it's important as far as your career. Now, there are some actors that I think have made an awesome career, and they're like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about film, but I'm a great actor. But I definitely think it helps. It helps a lot.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the cinephiles from the ones that are not. Like, I mean, Defoe has an amazing career.
Amazing, and you could tell he loves film. Have you seen his Criterion Closet?
No, I need to see that one.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Yeah.
He's going to be in Beetlejuice, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Oh, and I'll just get that out of the way right now, like as far as Beetlejuice. It's so funny because I don't know if you've seen Tim Burton talk about making Beetlejuice?
No.
He because he talks about his time at Disney the way George Lucas did when he sold it.
Seriously.
Like he's this close to calling them white slavers. Like he talked about making Dumbo and how he felt like Dumbo in the middle of the circus being constrained. And he's like, I will never work for Disney again. And like he's like, the reason I made Beetlejuice was to try to like recapture his mojo, I guess, you know, when it comes to like film and filmmaking. And just from seeing the trailers, you can tell he made an effort to go back to like practical effects, stop motion, and it looks, for the first time in a long time, I'm like, wow, there's effort being put in here. And the first reviews have actually been pretty positive and again, from reviewers I would trust to be like, I know they're like sick of these fucking legacy sequels, have not been hot on Burton for a while, and they're like, oh shit, like he's got a lot of that juice back, you know. It's a lot of fun. It's really,
isn't it amazing how Disney can just crush creativity? Everybody who works for them says the exact same thing about how stifling and like limiting they are, and soul crushing it is to be there.
Yeah.
That being said, like, why did Tim even agree to make that many movies for them? He made like what, 3 or 4? I even lost count how many.
He made a lot. That's why it's like, like you like the money, like that's why I'm a little bit like, I'm not the first one to defend Disney, but it's like, they gave you the paycheck, you took it, you know what you were doing, you weren't a victim. Like,
I mean, look at Barry Jenkins somehow getting saddled to do Mufasa the Lion King.
Oh yeah, it looks like complete shit and the worst film Barry Jenkins will ever make. But it's also like, he went in with his eyes open, he took that check, he wanted that check, he probably needed that check, and fuck yeah, get your money. But it's also like, you know the deal you're making. I guess I'll put it that way. And for him, he hit a point in his career where I think he coasted and he made the movies he made to get that paycheck, Tim Burton. And I think he just finally kind of had enough of it.
I'm happy to hear that, though, that he literally tried to make a better movie this time around. Because it felt like, even with films that he didn't necessarily make with Disney, he just didn't care.
That's what I was going to say. It's not all Disney's fault. Because he made films outside of Disney, and they were still shit, too. Like, what was that, like, Peregrine's Home?
Miss Peregrine? I didn't watch it, but it was like, well, okay. And
then he made Big Eyes, and that was supposed to be a return to more like, you know, Oscar movie, Spielberg. Not Spielberg.
Didn't work.
Burton.
Right.
Like, yeah, and it just, it really fell flat.
The last thing he made that I think worked with people was Frankenweenie, was it not?
Yeah, but that's one of those films where it's like, everyone was like, yeah, it's pretty good, but it was never a hit. No. It kind of, people kind of always forget it. It kind of came and went.
Yeah.
But I rewatched it recently, and I was like, no, like it's good Burton. It's a lot of fun. I definitely like it, but there is an aspect, I guess, to it, I don't know, that gets sort of lost and becomes forgettable for people. But no, yeah, I'm actually, again, it's similar to the Wonka thing, where it's like, the idea of a Wonka sequel made me want to blow my brains out. Or not a sequel, like a prequel origin.
Right.
And the idea of a Beetlejuice sequel, where it's like, it's not that kind of movie. Do not do a sequel. And now I'm like, I'm looking forward to it. You know,
if it's good, it's good. That's the thing.
If it's good, it's good.
So, yeah.
Furiosa.
Yes.
Let's talk about another sequel prequel that maybe people were like, why make it? Furiosa. You sung its praises. Now it's my turn. I love this film. And like I said, I love how different it is. It's so very different from what do you call it? A Fury Road.
Not just tonally or like structurally so, but the way that it's shot is
the way
even
that
different.
It's shot thematically. It's a darker story as well.
Yeah.
It's just all, but it still feels very Mad Max.
Yes.
I agree. It's maybe the best prequel, specifically prequel, because I'm thinking of like, what's another great prequel that just works perfectly with the original film?
The Phantom Menace. No. I'm not being serious. That's not an example of a great prequel because it kind of breaks Star Wars, but we don't talk about that.
Like I think I almost said Blade Runner 2049, but that's a sequel. That's one of the best like legacy sequels. It might be the best one.
Solo, a Star Wars story, right?
Oh yeah, of course, yes. So,
that was like one of the most eye-rolling. That's like the poster boy of like what not to do in a prequel, of like eye-rolling moments. Like, oh no.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
Like I'm sure a lot of people thought that Furiosa would be another Solo, with all these needless like fan service moments. And the thing is, Furiosa does have moments of like, I wonder how she got her arm like this, or I wonder how her hair is this way, or I wonder this here. It answers those questions, but not in a way where it makes you feel like it was like, and here's the part where we're gonna do the fan service moment.
I never had that moment. It's crazy with all the moments where they set it up for letting you know. They peel back to show you how and when these things were set up compared to Fury Road. They always catch me off guard. Like I forget that she loses her arm watching Furiosa, and then when the moment comes, it still always hits me like, oh shit, it's not played for like a big sort of remember this moment. It's in the moment, it's. You approach it like this is the first story you're ever hearing of these people, and that's the way you're supposed to approach a prequel. I always hate when people make prequels and they're like, no, you're supposed to watch the prequel and then the original, and it's like, well, you didn't. The film, the thematic sort of storytelling isn't done in a way for that. If you're having a big triumphant moment in the prequel where it only works if I remember the original, then the film doesn't work as the first in this story. It happens where I have to watch the original and then it only works because I come back and see it. This is the first time where I think it totally works to watch this one first and then watch Mad Max. Mad Max almost feels like the entire third act for Furiosa, right, in a weird way.
it works even better this way because Mad Max Fury Road isn't concerned with any of the questions of context or backstory. It just drops you in and you either go along for the ride or you don't. And I recently talked about it with Alexis the other week, that part of what became a barrier for her ultimately enjoying the film thoroughly was because she had so many questions about like, wait, what's going on here? Who are these people? What's happened? Where are we going?
For Fury Road or Furiosa?
Fury Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, that's crazy because that's an aspect I know a lot of people love, including me. The way you're sort of just dropped into this world and it's just
right.
like, fuck you. We're moving at 100 miles an hour.
Right.
And we're not stopping. That is an aspect that I love about that film.
And a lot of people do, and I've come to appreciate that. But I do agree that my part would also kind of like curtailed my ability to like love the film immensely when I first watched it was, well, I don't know how much I care really at the end of the day. And I feel like the way that I explained it to her is, if that's the case, I feel like you're going to like the movie a lot more, Fury Road, after having seen Furiosa. Because I did watch Furiosa and Fury Road back to back.
She hasn't seen Furiosa yet?
No, she has not.
Okay.
She was going to, but she also just like felt like, well, I don't really like Fury Road all that much, and so like, like
Moreno, I know you're not listening to this, but watch it.
Yeah. Anya Taylor-Joy is so good in this.
She's incredible.
And I even I think I saw a transcript of an interview where like George Miller was like, he let her keep her hair for a lot longer in the movie because to him she looked cool.
Yeah. It's so funny. During the interviews, she talks about how like she was like so excited to shave her head. She'd always wanted to shave her head for a role. And then he met her and like touched her hair. He's like, I'm not cutting this hair. Which is hilarious. But you know what? What incredible bald what do you call it? Bald cap work.
Yeah.
Really well done.
No, for sure. You really couldn't tell.
Mm-hmm.
But come on, the commanding presence Chris Hemsworth has.
He is incredible. See, this is another one where I say, like, you can make good decisions, but they don't always work out career-wise. Like, this is the opposite, where you could tell Hemsworth, I think, wants to appear in great films. And he really
and has
tries
been, to an extent, to be real. Yeah.
But they just don't work out all the times in the ways that they should. Like, I think going all in with Taika Waititi and Thor, that comes from a place of film and caring about it and wanting something unique, and it just didn't work out for most people. And I think going all in with something like Furiosa and the performance he gives, great. One of, like, honest to God, I thought, again, this is what I'm saying, where look at the Academy, when it comes to certain, films, they just would never consider it, even though there's a lot of performances that are better than a lot of the films that they like. Like his performance as Dementus, I think, is way better than Joaquin's as Joker. His last, like, that whole third act is awesome. To me, it really sealed the deal of the movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
The way that whole sort of confrontation between the two played out in his amazing performance. But the movie bombed. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, yeah, man, even you could be a great actor, make some really awesome decisions in what films you appear, and that's fucking Hollywood,
Yeah, again, not everything he's in works out, but there's been enough where I'm like, this guy he's got it. Like, I remember when I watched him in Bad Times in the El Royale many years ago.
That's another one where it's like amazing choice.
And he was great, and no one watched it.
And no one fucking watched it. Oh, man. Now I'm pissed off all over again. Why'd you remind me?
And then the thing is, like, this also can create new relationships moving forward. You know how actors like to gleam under directors. I believe recently George Miller was like, I would do Thor 5 if Chris Hemsworth is in it.
Honest to God. And Hemsworth feels like the kind of guy who would fight hard behind the scenes to make that happen. Where he's like, I got one more in me. I want it to be great. George is like one of the all-time greats. He loves me. I love him. Like, I feel that I'll be on. I usually hate whenever people are like, let's get this big, like, people get lazy with their picks as far as, you know what I mean? This is the one where I'm like, I think it would be amazing because he's got that sort of eye for the awe and wonder and sort of myth in storytelling and film that sort of goes hand in hand with Thor, the God of Thunder, and I feel if any director could make like a film, an actual film within the MCU sort of machinery, it would be George Miller. Would it look as good as his films outside of it? No. But it would be really well done. I want it to happen. I'll put it that way.
I think it would be a great idea. I would be all in too, but I also
Mm-hmm.
just feel at the same time like, man, it would be nice if Kevin Feige wasn't around. Then I would have more confidence in that.
I feel like it would have already been greenlit. if I know, man, Kevin Feige, especially because I think Kevin Feige is in defensive mode right now.
Yeah, and I feel like I look at previous, like, well, I would think that the things that you just said about Miller being able to operate in the MCU, I would have thought Raimi would have been able to do successfully navigate, and he got some things across. But
that's what I'm saying. He technically was. I think the real issue is
the script.
they already had an idea and a script of what they wanted Doctor Strange to be.
Yeah.
They started out calling it Multiverse of Madness, and I really think they fucked the movie completely when they did that. And so Sam Raimi came in to that situation, and even then he was able to inject a lot of Sam Raimi goodness. I really hate that the movie doesn't come together better, because there are like 5 moments throughout the film where I'm like, this is just awesome, right? If this was the whole movie, it might be my favorite Marvel movie ever, because it's just so fun and so well done. And I think the next Thor movie, it won't be like Thor versus Kang, or Thor takes on the Doom bots or some, like, they're not going to tie it in hard to the rest of the MCU. I think it's just going to be a Thor film. So if you bring in George from the beginning and just sort of allow them to cook, as
like
the children
then James
say,
Gunn do whatever he wanted. They could just do that.
Yeah. I think you can come in with a scenario like that and it'll work a lot better.
I would think so too. And I feel like, again, when you go back to singing the praises of Furiosa, I understand, of course, there is considerably less action in that. It ain't all action, I would say. But there are still massive action sequences in here that, quite frankly, blew me away.
But see, that's the thing, right? Like, a lot of people are like, oh, it's not that much action. It would be like the biggest action film of 1990, though, right? Like,
yeah.
It would be the biggest, most action-packed film of the previous decades. But because it takes a little bit long, it's not literally Fury Road. It's like, oh, they pulled back. Yeah, but look at how much more is in there. That's so awesome.
It's like
The
a
world is
79-year-old
incredible.
shot this action. Are you fucking kidding me? It's so... How do you do that? Like, he approached that war rig sequence is the one that one had the Octo boss, right? And the flying
Octobus.
people.
Your scum, Dementus.
It's even got quotes. It's even got quotes and lines that we can already be talking about. But that whole war rig sequence was shot as if some brand new hot 20-something made it. And and it ain't that. It's a 79-year-old at the height of his powers and showing up literally anybody else doing action these days. It's like insane.
But the entire visual language of the action is so different. It's not that quick cut freneticism you see in Fury Road. It's just like so perfectly like the movements of the camera are so with purpose. You know what I mean? And like the way that it's paced, you know, the fight starts and boom, within a few minutes they pop into the air, right? And then you have these things, and then boom, you have they pull out the claw, and the way it just slowly ramps up to like till you get to the Octoboss and his fucking flying machine at the end. It's so well done. He's a master craftsman, and the man understands Valhalla. Like, let him do Thor. I know a lot of people would roll their eyes like, oh my god, like George Miller only has so many movies left in him. Don't tie him to the shitty MCU machine and have one of the last films. I think you could get an all-timer. I'm not saying it would be as good as Fury Road or Furiosa, but it would be something special.
It's got potential to be something special.
Yeah.
That's it is a really sexy idea, honestly. Just like it's kind of too much to resist if you think about it.
I'm hoping Hemsworth, I believe in him. I feel like he would try to make that happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially since George is the one who was sending out these signals like, hey, I would totally do it.
That's what's so infuriating, because like you had Sam Raimi too be like, oh yeah, I'd do it for sure. Like Sam Raimi literally like, yeah, I'd direct the Avengers. Yeah, I'd make a Batman film. Can you imagine a Sam Raimi Batman film?
Man,
I would die and go to heaven. But then everyone's like, no, let's get the one, freaking James Gunn. Let's get the one who directed The Flash to do.
I don't think that's happening anymore.
I'm going to be real. I don't think
yeah.
it's happening.
No.
I don't think it's happening. I think eventually they're just going to announce a new director and just be like, yeah, creative differences. Yeah. I think he's kind of avoiding Batman, to be honest.
I do too, but I also I don't know if I believe anymore James Gunn if he really meant those comments about
that's the thing.
Liking The Flash. I think maybe he was saying that to appease David Zaslav because he really liked The Flash. Hilariously, I think he believed wholeheartedly in that movie that would be the biggest hit.
That's the thing. Like, that's another thing where you look in the past, it's like people, the shitty executives that used to control Hollywood at least had sort of a love for movies as well, you know? That was baked in there somewhere, and now you really don't have that. Like, Zaslav doesn't know two fucking things about movies. He just wants to buy it, strip it for parts, and sell it. Like,
yeah.
This is a positive podcast.
Yes. Furiosa is an incredible piece of work. It immediately became one of my favorite movies of the year. It still is. I have no, I mean, at this point, I haven't seen too many, but I think my top three, it's a literal three-way tie between Furiosa, Dune Part 2, and Challengers. All kind of different movies, but are all just like, to me anyway, my idea of the best version of what those movies could have been. It's so interesting too. Literally movies like that keep me going, and it be continuing to be invested in this world of movies, because if it wasn't for those three, not that there aren't any other good movies that came out this year, but like, I mean, those, to me, those three tower above everything else that I've seen so far. Again, there's not very much I've seen. On the flip side of that, though, there are some that have just depressed the hell out of me as far as like what is that to foretell? Like the success of two, at best, mediocre movies, which were, to me anyway, such corporate creations like Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things, I guess the biggest thing that bothers me, it's like, okay, like, these executives are proven right once again. Like, this, when it comes to Pixar, don't invest in original films, invest in sequels, and you don't even have to try that hard. Just make them, and they will come, basically. And it's the same thing of, like, Deadpool and Wolverine triple down on being self-referential and, you know, nostalgia berries, and all of their worst instincts that has not worked in their past few films. Well, it kind of has, because it worked for Spider-Man. So it just tells me, it's like every time one of these movies comes out and succeeds, it's like, okay, 10 more years of winter kind of thing. It's like, okay, so they're going to keep trying this for another decade at least. At least. Yeah. It extends it that much every single time.
I didn't want to say it out loud, Peter. I really didn't, but it's the truth. I mean, I was kind of a little bit hopeful that after last year, with literally every blockbuster, you know, cratering pretty hard, that those tricks may not work anymore. And for the most part, they're not. But I guess Disney continues to get away with it scot-free.
Yeah. And there was a time where it's like, oh, maybe it's losing its luster with Disney. But no, there's still a few things that they have to pillage. It'll be really interesting to see how that Lion King live action 2 does. I think that'll be a real sign. Because a part of me thinks, like, okay, the X-Men are the last part of, like, the X-Men and Fantastic Four are the last major Marvel characters that have not been... Those are the cards they still have to play. You know what I mean? There's a reason why Kevin Feige hit the emergency doom button. Which, can I be honest with you? Even that I didn't like, but it would have been understandable. But then he took it 50 steps ahead and cast Robert Downey Jr. as Doom. Which I'm like, damn, he's really terrified. Like he's
Yeah.
really, like he's going hard. What's his name? The one in charge of Disney.
Bob Iger.
He's gone hard, Bob Iger, because that's what Bob
Yeah.
Iger does when he's up against a corner. Toy Story 5, you know.
Frozen
guess what?
3 and 4.
Yep, and it's gonna work because they're gonna all those films are gonna hit $1 billion. You can't argue, I guess, with it. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting though if the ones they've already pillaged continue to work. Like the original live action Lion King made $1 billion, but it's a shit movie that no one likes. It worked once, will it work again? Sort of thing. You know what I mean?
I think we've already seen this playbook, and I can't believe Disney doesn't understand this. Yes, Lion King made $1 billion, but that's because it was a remake of the movie everybody liked.
This is original. You should know your fans don't like original.
And even when they're trying to do something different, like a twist or a spin-off, I'll give you other examples. Maleficent and Alice in Wonderland from the early 2010s. They both had sequels, and I dare you to even remember what their names were, because no one watched them. They like there was Alice Through the Looking Glass, which you watched in theaters, right, Peter? You said that you fell asleep watching it.
I fell asleep. That's like one of the only times that's ever happened. I think that's the only time it's ever happened.
And then there was also Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. Like they had sequels that no one watched, and they lost money on those because they thought, well, they made money the first time. Well, maybe it'll make money again the second time. I have a feeling it'll
that
perform.
Algorithm.
Yeah, I don't think it'll perform that well. And if it does, between that and Joker Folly to Do, I might kill myself.
But I think it'll be a good indicator of to see how much they have left to pillage, how much longer it'll work, kind of thing.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
I really wish Avatar Fire and Ash was coming out this year.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm looking forward to.
Leave it to Mr. Cameron.
What an amazing title, by the way, Fire and Ash.
Yeah, he's so interesting because there's that one thing he did where he had a screening of Way of Water, and him and his producing partner, who sadly passed away.
Yeah, it's John Landau. Yeah,
John
I heard
Landau.
about that. Yeah,
they're literally like, you love the movie, that's awesome. We don't want to hear that right now. Give us your genuinely real criticisms of the film. Like what did you like? What didn't you like? Where would you like to see it go? Like they had like a whole it's crazy how he did that, and especially because the film's already technically shot and done,
right?
But
so is the fourth, is it not? I think the fourth one also was technically shot and done. Well, not done, but shot. A good part
I think
of it.
The first fourth or something, because I think there's like a time jump in the fourth, so they're like, oh, like we shot the second, the third, and the beginning of the fourth, and then they stopped.
Well, what happened to those rumors of like a 7-hour cut of not a cut, but a 7-hour version of like what the fourth one or the fifth one? I can't even remember, or something.
Well, it's funny when the sequel was coming out, he's saying like, yeah, the script that really got everyone at the studio
5.
going crazy was like 4 or 5.
Okay.
So he's like, just, you gotta hold on for the... It's like, what other director would go like, yeah, my real magnum opus is the fourth one of this franchise. Is that I've written and I'm barely marketing and shot all together and barely going on the second. Like, he's crazy and I love him. But yeah, it's interesting because what he did there, and then his comments where he's like, it's nothing you expect but everything you want, when he's introducing it at
D23.
At D23. It's like, yeah, like that's a fucking filmmaker, right?
You know, his appearance at the D23 convention was the equivalent of that labor leader speaking at the RNC.
It's just so different. It's so different, especially comparatively, because everything else is like executives going like, you remember your childhood? Look, it's everything you remember exactly the way it is, and corporate speak. And then he comes in like, movies, man, you know?
Mm-hmm. No one
It's
does
just
it
so
like him.
interesting.
I'm not even sure if you saw that headline that in the same weekend at the same convention, Pete Docter, I don't know if he was intentionally playing this for laughs, but he had shared with the audience a discussion he once had with Hayao Miyazaki about like how much of does he consider what the audience thinks when he makes his movies. Which, by the way, that's such a stupid question to ask because I feel like if you watch his movies, it should be pretty evident.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's an okay question to ask. Literally anyone in Hollywood. Stupidest question to ask Hayao Miyazaki.
Of all people. And of course,
Of all
Miyazaki said, like, I don't consider what the audience wants. And of course, the audience that was listening at that moment of the convention was laughing. And those poor bitches, those poor deluded sons of bitches, because they don't realize that's what you're fucking missing. That's what your
That's
entire
a goddamn
corporation.
filmmaker right there.
Yeah. So, hey, they're not gonna come to their senses, whatever. I mean, let them, I guess, be them. But like, they're just gonna continue to produce crap, and in some cases, continue to get away with it. So, but this might actually be a good way to transition over into what we have next, because one of the assets that they've acquired, and I'm so disgusted to be qualifying it as an asset, because it used to be a full-fledged movie studio, 20th Century Fox, and now Disney owns it. But if there's one name brand that is continuously pumping out some really interesting work, like movies, actual movies, it is now 20th Century Studios. We've had a couple of years now, when you think about Prey and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and now Alien Romulus, like they're using these. Of course, Disney wants to use the franchises because they can make some kind of money and they're known and everything. But in this instance, they seem to be making some pretty good pieces of work here, and of course you factor in that Avatar is also included in there as well. There's a lot that of promise that they're showing in just these works.
Well, I think Fox, for all its flaws, and shit ton of flaws, it was a movie studio, right?
Yeah.
So you would have those high highs and you'd have those low lows, but I think that's sort of the fun, what's interesting about film. And
that used to be something that every studio agreed was just part of the process.
Yeah.
They would be okay with taking the risk, but then we let tech and we let Reaganomics and all these multi-conglomerate corporations come on in here and like just completely make it all about the margin, the profit margins and productivity, and like, are we going up this way, that way, and all these numbers and math that have no, in my view, they make my head hurt because they're just so stupid and dumb. And it's not really about like how good you're doing now. It's, are you growing enough? What?
Am I going to get my quarterly bonus? And yeah, Disney's the one that's kind of perfected this sort of formula for everything they make.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a formula, because you look at their live action work. Before, they used to get some wildly different shit in their live action films. Now it's just...
I mean, they used to have Miramax. And Touchstone Pictures they made because they wanted to have more adult driven movies, and then of course they got rid of them
because they're not making $1 billion, right? No. Why make a movie if it doesn't make $1 billion? And it's the same thing where it's like, okay, well, every live action thing we're gonna do is just gonna be a remake of our animated films. Pixar, our formula, we've already done the work to make everyone in love with these characters, so we'll just do endless sequels. The animated film, I don't even know. Oh, sequels too. Yeah, animated films, because we're getting a Moana 2. We're getting Frozen 2.
Which I want to remind the audience, it's not really a Moana. It's not really a Moana 2. It's a Moana 6-episode animated series that they stitched together into a movie. In case you forgot about that. Mm-hmm. Which is also just reshelving. Again, Bob Iger can't do an original damn thing. It's just reshelving what they did like 10 or 15 years prior. They would do the exact same thing with Atlantis. They were making an Atlantis TV show, and then they canceled it because the movie didn't work out too well. And so what did they do? They announced Atlantis 2, direct to DVD and video.
Yeah, but now they can throw it in theaters and make $1 billion because nostalgia.
I don't think that's going to be well received. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's going to make money, but I don't know how well received that's going to be because that trailer...
Incredibles 2 was basically that. Like a few episodes of the Incredibles TV show stitched together, and people bought it like hook, line, and sinker. So I don't know.
That's fair. But I feel like it somehow ended up being that way, but I feel that the intent was not that whatsoever. That's my thinking. In this situation, you're reverse engineering something. You're taking something that was designed to work as a show. It may even work better as a movie because they don't make TV shows, right? They just make long movies. So it may work out in its favor when it comes to Moana too. But more to the point here, maybe I don't like giving Disney credit for anything these days, but hey, they've kept their hands off of Searchlight Studios. Searchlight Pictures, I should say. So, because the movie behind you, there's that for that now exists for now.
Then they're gonna demand Poor Things too.
It's pretty funny though, because if you think about it, Poor Things was one of the more successful Disney films of 2023.
Yes,
from a box office standpoint.
What a film!
So, let's go ahead and talk about the Alien franchise here. As mentioned before, years ago, I did a deep dive into the film series because Peter, of course, insisted on it, and I ended up loving it. Of course, we have the original Ridley Scott movie, and we have the James Cameron movie, the sequel Aliens to Alien. And it's funny how in looking at all and listening to many conversations about, people and their history with the franchise, especially when we delve into ranking the movies, it's always like, well, the top is boring and the bottom is boring because everybody agrees on like what the best are and what the worst are. It's always the middle arrangement that's the most interesting. And what I've noticed is like universally across the board, Alien and Aliens are like beloved. But it's a really interesting question when people pose it to you, like, are you an alien person or are you an aliens person? And that's hard to answer for me because, like, I like Ridley Scott, but I love James Cameron. And I remember I love them both, but Aliens, I remember just like, what the fuck? It had... James Cameron, in some ways, makes the same movie in that, like, he brings to it this adrenaline drug thing that you just can't help but feel like, pumping your fist up to and just being all in on. Like all of his films have that quality. Alien by design is a horror film, true and true.
For
and
sure,
it has like, a deliberate pace to it where it's not at all going for the same thing that Aliens is. And that's what always has made this a really interesting franchise, is that the first two films have, kind of been a bit of a blueprint of like which direction you may want to go with it. And then, of course, the David Fincher movie happened and things happened there. And then there was another one that happened that people think even less of. But then there was a side thing with Alien versus Predator. But then they also came back around where the original person, Ridley Scott, came back, did Prometheus, and tried to do his own thing. And then he did a sequel to Prometheus called Alien Covenant, which
I think works so much better if you just call it Covenant.
it does, and at the same... Because here's my thing. Yes, Alien is a masterpiece, as is Aliens. Prometheus, I felt, was really good. But not a perfect movie by any means. But to me, Prometheus falls in the same spot where I'm just interested by the ideas that I'm with it. Like how we talked about earlier with Cloud Atlas and 3,000 Years of Longing, where you can tell it doesn't all work and there are things about it that keep it back. But it scratches an itch, right? Prometheus is maybe like how I also felt about Eternals from Chloe Zhao a few years ago. Where it's like, definitely not ever going to be a film that everybody agrees on. But there's a lot of interesting ideas at work here where it's keeping me engaged. So that's why I appreciated a lot about Prometheus, that, Ridley Scott came back to this franchise and was trying to do something not at all that was in the text of the original property. and somehow reverse engineer it, no pun intended, to be part of this franchise. And then what happened with Alien Covenant is a really interesting case study, because I feel the film is really held back by the idea that it feels like Ridley was kind of pressured by Fox, in the sense that we need this to feel a little bit more like an actual Alien film and a little bit less like a Prometheus movie, but it's still a Prometheus sequel, but at the same time it's also trying to be an Alien prequel. So it's like, I don't necessarily feel, because it's trying to do two at the same time, it's not really successful at being either a sequel to Prometheus or an Alien film on its own right.
Yeah.
I am entertained by the movie despite these issues. I think it's certainly still watchable, and I feel Michael Fassbender is still incredible as this character. But because it's trying to be a sequel to a Prometheus movie and a conventional Alien film, it doesn't really come together as either or. And I ultimately feel that's what happened. And it led people to not really be as interested as this when it came out in 2017.
Yeah. There's been like a lot of, what would you call it? Trying to, what's the word? Not recapture the film, but reassess the film in a positive light recently.
What's the term? Covenant. Like, I know what you're trying to say. It's like, they're like a reappraisal, or
yeah. I think that's the word. Yeah. Of the film. I'm not with that. I don't buy it.
I still think it's hilarious, though.
I
feel like Ridley's movies, if nothing else, are hilarious, because I think like when you watch his movies in a row, he has a little bit of that, like, there's a mean-spiritedness.
There's a very mean-spirited in a comedic way where it's funny. That's
look at Napoleon. To me, I felt like that would have been one of the that should have been nominated at the Globes for best comedy. It's genuinely funny, and it's trying to be funny, and I think that's totally Ridley's sense of humor. So in Covenant, to me, ironically, the stuff that works the best is the Looney Tunes wackadoodle crap that's happening with these dumbass scientists. You know?
Yes, but I guess for me the difference is, in the good Alien films, you care about the people.
Yeah.
And that's the tough thing.
Yeah.
Because in Prometheus, I'll go to bat for Prometheus. I think there's still absolutely stupid moments.
No, yeah.
That you can't sort of brush away. That just bring down the film.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it was kind of sloppily. There's a lot of sloppiness to that film.
To me, the one is Charlize Theron running away in a straight line from the ship when she could have just ran off to the side. That to me is still the most like,
that's
what?
Really bad, because she could have, you just roll twice and you would have lived. And she's like, no. It's like an Austin Powers joke.
Right?
Like, it's bad. And it's bad in ways where you can't slice it to make it work. You just can't. And it's the same, and I think that's twice as bad in Covenant.
Yeah.
Where in some places it creates humorous events,
yes.
But a lot of times I'm just like, I just hate everyone here, and everything's terrible.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people are like, oh man, Ridley Scott went so much harder than Alvarez, look at how mean-spirited and like scary this is. And it's like, yeah, but I didn't care when these people died. Like, it's mean-spirited, but
yeah,
like I'm pointing and laughing like, you got fucked, you idiot. Like, because they come down to a planet, an alien planet. These are supposed to be intelligent people. That's the tough thing. These are supposed to be like scientists, and they come down to a planet they've never encountered before, without any kind of suits. And what happens? A pathogen immediately gets inside them and fucks them up. And it's like, okay, what a surprise. you know? What a fucking surprise. And then from there, they just make stupid decision after stupid decision. And then, yeah, you sent me the clip of, like, when... That is horrific, when it, like, pops out of the spine, out of the back. But, yeah, just every decision made by every character there, so stupid. And in a very humorous way, that just kind of makes me go, like, yeah... It's like a slasher, where you're almost rooting...
It really...
You're, like, rooting for Jason to, like, stab those stupid motherfuckers in the face. Like, I still remember... It throws me off every time Covenant, they're trying to escape on the ship, right? As the, like, first alien is running after them and jumping on the ship. And it's like the ending, they're trying to leave. And it immediately cuts to one of the two survivors in a shower having sex. The second that they escape. And it's like, it immediately becomes a slasher film. And like a cheesy... shitty B-movie slasher. And it's such a weird tonal shift. And yeah, you can tell that he didn't want to make another Alien movie. He wants to make a David movie, which I much rather see, because the best parts of Prometheus were him dealing with that sort of like, who are we, who creators, those big picture, big ideas things. And he's still thinking about it. He went and he made that show, Raised by Wolves on Max, which feels like a spiritual sequel to Prometheus and everything he was trying to do there. And you can tell he's just locked the fuck in with everything with David, you know, in all the scenes with him. And then everything else, I'm sorry, he's just sort of going through the motions. Especially with the alien at the end. It's shot in such a boring... like unscary way. He's just kind of there. You know what it feels like though? Mm-hmm. Do you remember how was it Lana Wachowski was talking about the Matrix as resurrections, and how there was some, I don't know if she herself said this or if there were people were reading in the comments or into the film, in the text of the film itself, that she was just like literally trying to like break it enough, not make a bad movie. I mean, like just like the conventions by which people suspect she was heavily working out through some angry things, right? And it is an angry film, the Matrix Resurrections, to the point where people were saying that when the movie came out, she may have been successful in like, you know, making it harder for WB to like continue to use her original property without them, you know, her and her sister. Didn't work out apparently, but I feel like you can make maybe Ridley was just really bothered and angered by the fact that he was forced to make this an alien film, and so he just on purpose was like fuck you and fuck these people by just like, you know, being in like over the top and the mean spiritedness. I mean, I could totally see that. Maybe I think he just kind of wasn't. He didn't care about that aspect. No, he didn't. No, I think he very clearly. He wanted to make the sequel to Prometheus. That sequel called Covenant. And the studio came in and went, Alien. The fact that it's called Alien Covenant tells you everything to do with the film. And also because... But I also don't like the direction they took with the David stuff. I don't like it. I don't like how we cut... to like, I guess we found, like the whole big mystery was about finding these engineers, and it's like, I guess we found them and just immediately killed them all. And you had that interesting dynamic between him and what was her name from Prometheus?
Dr. Shaw?
Shaw.
I feel like,
and then she's just dead.
Yeah, it did feel like you were just throwing that away. The way that I read it was like Ridley's whole thing with Prometheus and Covenant was like this whole notion of his perspective is how dumb it is to think about not gods in general, but just to seek them out, and the fact that we can be our own gods, right? I think he was working out a lot through David, right?
Yeah, but see, like maybe if he had the whole film to explore that,
Yes.
that shit would work a lot more for me.
Yeah.
But because it just sort of became a proto-alien film, especially with having a Ripley stand-in, the crew, the ship,
the usuals,
the monsters that aren't technically aliens, but they move and act exactly like aliens, so it doesn't really matter how visually different they are, even though they're not even that visually different. And then it ends the same as Alien, but then sprinkled through, he has those moments with David where it's like, yeah, this does work. If the whole movie was this, and the same setup, you could have the same setup where it's like you have this people attempting to colonize, and they have their own sort of David, what do you call it? Synthetic with them, but just remove all the other stupid alien connections.
Right.
Yeah, like if it was just a Prometheus sequel, I would be so much more into it. But it just doesn't come together. It doesn't work as a Prometheus sequel. I don't think so. It doesn't work as an Alien sequel. By the end, David is just kind of a villain. I think he's just not interesting by the end of the film. Like a lot of people, again, trying to that reappraisal of the film and like, yeah, let's complete Ridley's trilogy. And it's like, I don't think it's going anywhere interesting.
Exactly, like where it ended off like, oh yeah, he'll just destroy humanity. Okay, well, I guess that's it.
He's gonna go experiment with making more aliens. I guess that's what he's into. He's an asshole. And it's like, it's just not interesting. Like, I don't think it was going anywhere interesting at all. Yeah, I'm not with the reappraisal of Alien Covenant.
That being said, no, I agree with you. But that being said, if somehow they greenlit a David movie with no alien in it, and Ridley wants to do it, I would watch it.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was Prometheus. That's why I dig on Prometheus. I do, even though I dig that it's kind of its own thing. I like that he went back to a property he made, and he's like, it's gonna be in the same world, but it's gonna be something completely different. And I'm just gonna take just a little thing from this one moment and do something entirely new with it. And I'm not even gonna worry that much about continuity, right? Continuity, schmontinuity. It's about engaging with these new cool sci-fi ideas. You know, I dig all that. But the what do you call it? The hushed secret that no one wants to talk about with all these properties is that they usually work better without sequels. The mystery of it is what makes it work. The idea that you have no idea who the engineers are is so much more interesting and horrific than anything you can put to screen. You know, the idea that the space miners just happen upon this like cosmic horror that we will never have any understanding of, but it's there, it works so much better than sort of getting an explanation for it. But because we need endless sequels, we're gonna get explanations. Yada yada yada. Which I guess brings us to
Romulus.
Let me pull up my bullshit. Dun, da, da, da. Alien Romulus, directed by deepfake Ridley Scott. While scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonizers, cancel them, come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. Again, AI. For me, I want to kind of piggyback about what I was saying before about like the dirty secret is that these films work better without sequels, but you have to keep making them, so it's like might as well make them good. Like that. It's the same with Alien. It's the same with Predator. Predator works better when it's like you have no idea what this creature is, and is it part of a race of hunting aliens, or is it just the equivalent of your Uncle Jim Bob going hunting on the weekend, you know? Which is more terrifying when you think about it? The idea that just this average alien just going out for a weekend hunting can murder the greatest warriors that Earth has to throw at them like it's nothing, right? Or it's part of an alien human race, not human race, a warrior alien race that goes out and hunts. And you could go through this with like even Star Wars. The point is, the best sequels and the best way to do it is you have to pull back layers, not just dump, info and everything about all this lore, but pull back layers to the world while introducing new mysteries. And I think the best sequels to these kinds of franchises do that. I loved Prey. I'm one of those people. Alien Romulus, I think, despite a lot of the criticisms, and it's funny because these are a lot of criticisms that I usually have for these kinds of films, I feel like Romulus works really, really well because it does that. It pulls back layers to the world, but it introduces some new stuff that I think is fun and interesting and horrific and works as an alien film. It's very well directed. Fede Alvarez, I'm a big fan of his work, and he really pulls together the world, just the analog world of this retro futurism, 70s ugliness to it. You see more of the world, but without feeling like you're seeing the whole world. You're still only seeing a corner. It just happens to be a corner on this map instead of a corner on the other side of the map. So this is like a mining colony, right? And you just peel back a little bit of the world of how these people live and the horrors of it and everything that comes with that, who these characters are. And it just works in that way. The same with the scares. A lot of familiar things done in new and interesting ways. And then, yeah, there's a new sort of creature at the end. But it, unlike previous iterations, it doesn't just feel like the alien, but slightly different design. It's a pretty big design shift. And it works thematically and within the film. The way it's shot. The sound is awesome in this film. I think the space is terrifying in ways I feel the last few haven't been. And all around, are there member berries in it? Yes. Do some of them suck? Yes. But I came away feeling sort of similarly to Prey, where I'm like, if you're gonna make endless sequels, this is sort of the best way to go about it, and to really make it work and make it enjoyable and worth. I came out going like, yeah, I'd see another one of those, and I think that's the biggest compliment you can give these kinds of films. So yeah, back to you, Brett.
I feel like I'm very happy with how the movie ended up being. Ultimately, I'm happy about the fact that you and I really, really enjoyed it. And that's where I landed with the movie. Just, to get the basics out of the way with, like, yeah, I like this movie quite a bit. And I was this actually happened to be one of these cases where, like, we were reading some concerning things.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's. I was reading the exact kind of things that set off my alarm in my head, where I'm like, oh no, like, all the things I hate and have come to expect in these kinds of films. Yeah.
Yeah, because basically the consensus that was established, well, maybe not a consensus, but a consensus of the people who were not liking it, I should say, the people who weren't liking it were kind of coalescing around the idea that this was another one of these legacy sequels that does all the legacy sequel things that you despise and hate at this point. And I feel like that breeds a different conversation of like where we are with legacy sequels, right? We're almost 10 years deep into that post Force Awakens. Force Awakens kind of becomes like the model, the template by which we follow legacy sequels from. And I think, you know, in the years since, we've had maybe a couple here and there that work, but on the whole, they just don't. And I know that I know that a lot of people right now are really excited about Jason Reitman's new movie, Saturday Night, and it may be a big player and everything, but the last Jason Reitman movie made me want to go punch a puppy, which was Ghostbusters Afterlife. That was terrible. Just terrible. And it was terrible not because it was the worst crap ever made, but it was terrible because specifically of the member berries, they have to be among the most useless and insultingly placed member berries I've ever seen in any one of these legacy sequels. It was just a very depressing experience, I should say. And that to me is kind of like the worst case scenario when we hear things like this. And again, there are other franchises that are not necessarily legacy sequels, but are kind of like takes on them. Like you can even make an argument that the multiverse pictures that have been made are kind of like an offshoot of, or maybe like a cousin of the legacy sequels, because they
redheaded stepchild cousin.
Right, exactly, because like they're the whole gimmick of the multiverse stuff is that, so far anyway, of the films, is that we're bringing back this old stuff and living in it, but just we don't understand what made that stuff great in the first place. But it's okay. We're just going to completely take it out of its space and use it for our purposes, which aren't. I mean,
to me, it's about being so concerned with recreating the aesthetics of the films,
right? But they don't. Like in most cases, think of Sam Raimi in the Spider-Man characters, or the Tim Burton Batman characters, and how they're brought in.
That's the worst example. I'm thinking of like J.J. Abrams' Star Wars, right?
Yeah,
I think you have two flavors. You have the ones where they're like so obsessed with just recreating the aesthetics of those original films without understanding what made them tick, what made them good, what worked, what didn't work, you know, and it's just recreating the aesthetics without any of the heart or soul. And then you have other films like Far From Home, where it's like just fucking throw it at the screen and repeat lines and they'll clap and cheer.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
The
one to me that kind of lives for me, where something just broke in me genuinely, was Michael Keaton saying, "You want to go nuts?"
That's the one that
in The Flash, I mean, and that was
I think
why is that even there? Why are we even here? What is the why of it all?
I think it's impossible for any film to be worse than The Flash in that way.
Yeah, that's right.
Specifically in that way. I don't think, even if you tried, you will never get as bad as like deep fake CGI. That was at the end. The film as a whole is an example of the worst aspects of these films, you know? Like, if I could think of like when you think about like, well, why do people hate superhero films? I would point to The Flash and be like, every instinct this film has, it's everything that's been wrong with these films, but to the worst I've ever seen. Which is why I don't know what James Gunn was smoking when he was talking about that movie. It's insane the way he went to bat for that movie, and it was just
was he smoking, or did he have a gun to his head?
I don't know, because he's usually pretty honest. Like, if he doesn't like a movie, he'll just keep his mouth shut.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't sell hard Aquaman or Shazam 2.
No.
And I think it's because he didn't care for those films that much. But he really sold, what do you call it?
The Flash.
The Flash. I don't know. It's okay. He'll make it up to me with Superman. I know he will.
But yeah, the point has definitely been made that these aspects of legacy sequels have really been hindering, and in many cases completely been the reason for why these sequels or prequels or whatever just haven't worked, because they go so hard into this aspect that it just ruins the whole thing completely. But it also just comes to a point where it just doesn't work anymore, and it was never really meant to work, from a long-standing standpoint. The Force Awakens worked because it was Star Wars and because of where Star Wars was.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't meant to be something that was replicated, because that's why we're in the situation that we're in right now.
J.J.
Abrams
has a career because he got away with doing what he's done at the time he did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like his Star Trek movie. Actually, he's a good director. Like, he can make scenes exciting, but he has the worst inclinations as a storyteller. He's not a writer. He has no idea. No, he's not a good one. He has no idea how to pull together a story whatsoever. No. And every subsequent film I've seen of his where he's written tells me that. And then also listening to him behind the scenes and like every interview he gives about why he makes the decisions he makes when writing his stories makes me go like, oh, okay. Like, he's just not good. But
for those of you who haven't seen the behind the scenes featurette for The Rise of Skywalker, it's very illuminating and eye-opening.
Well, there's the thing where it's like they talk about I think it's The Art of, where you look at for The Last Jedi and like Ryan is like pulling from all these classic films and has all these thematic reasoning and purpose for set design and the way things look and the way characters look. And then it's like, JJ's just like, oh, this looks cool. Why this? And they're like, oh, it's like an homage to 2001. And he's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I guess it was like, how his ship or his room is all white in The Return of Skywalker, where he has the helmet and everything.
Yeah.
And it's some designer did that, and he's like, oh, this kind of looks cool. Why'd you do that? He's like, oh, 2001. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll do
Sometimes
that.
it's okay to throw things in there because it looks cool, but it's never okay when it's... I mean, but those are smaller things.
That's 90% of the way he works, though. I guess that's my thing.
Yes. No, I agree with you. I wanted to reinforce that because I could already see people saying, like, well, wait a minute here. Didn't you just praise other people earlier for doing the same thing? No. We did it when... First of all, some of those people earned the right to do that, and when they do, it's for smaller things that aren't that impactful.
The rule of cool is a rule, but this isn't even the rule of cool. It's sort of like the way he talks about writing. He's like, I just sort of write it down and let it flow, and whatever comes on the page, it's, I think, like, he talks like some higher power, like, sort of translates through him, and it's like, no, you're just sort of thinking about Star Wars, and then without realizing it, you're just rewriting Star Wars. And there's no real thought put into like who these characters are and what's interesting about them.
To me, it's just like I feel like people still feel like he had any idea to the answers he was to the questions he set up in The Force Awakens. He had no idea, and if he had any idea what those answers were, Rian Johnson didn't have them. Also, just to, again, not to get too, embedded with the whole Star Wars stuff, but like, again, The Last Jedi has a sequence that people go berserk about there's many, but the one that people go apeshit over, stupidly enough, is Canto Bight. When that in and of itself is a more interesting take on a cantina-like sequence. Whereas, do we even remember the one in The Force Awakens?
It's literally just the same thing again. That's all. It's literally just the same thing. And did you even remember there's one in The Rise of Skywalker?
No,
it's
I don't remember.
It's when they go with Babu Frick to re whatever.
Okay.
They kind of walk past into a cantina. That's where what's his name? The composer. He does.
John Williams had a cameo in there, right?
Yeah. But yeah, again, the cantina.
I remember
Canto
it
Bight.
happening. I don't remember any of the visuals because it was just, what is there to remember visually from that sequence?
Visually, yeah. Babu Frick. That's the one thing I like about that movie. hey, he's a little guy. I like little guys. But yeah, like there's like real interesting thematic purpose to Canto Bight, and it's visually interesting and unique and distinct. And there's a purpose for it, for the story, for the characters, for the themes. Visually, it's new and interesting. And it's like,
whereas
okay.
You juxtapose that with The Force Awakens and that cantina sequence. That cantina is a recreation of A New Hope, and it also happens to be on a planet where it's just another jungle planet.
Yeah.
And then also later on in that scene, we get the reintroduction of the Skywalker lightsaber, and then that in and of itself brings forth a vision, which we hear the Darth Vader breathing noise, and then also, for whatever reason, Obi-Wan saying, "These are your first steps." I mean, it just continues to go one
had no
after the other, you know?
Idea what any of that meant, but it felt right. It felt cool, you know? And that it's... I don't know. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, you need to have everything planned out.
No.
Right? But you need to do something new. You need to be malleable in that way. Like, one of the things that I kind of gave Force Awakens, and I've said this so many times, I gave Force Awakens a pass because it's like, okay, we're doing the desert planet. It's literally fucking Tatooine, even though you don't call it Tatooine. It's literally visually Tatooine.
But I also don't forget where we were with... Right now, it's a very different place in time where we are with the prequels. But at the time, people still were like, we understood in the moment why they felt the need to be retro and with it, and nostalgic with it.
Here's
you know,
the thing.
like
Rogue One was the second film to come out.
Yeah.
And as much as I have issues with the script, visually, it's interesting. Visually, they do new stuff with it, right? Like, I love that beach planet. I love Scarif. Visually, Scarif is so cool. And I think
Jeddah City
is so cool. It's not just another desert planet. Like there's more to it than that. And then also the always raining planet. What's his name? Gareth Edwards said that was like an homage to Alien, like LV-1222, because it's this dark blue, rocky, like always raining planet and stuff. I don't know. There's more. And then also visually, like I said, I remember set pieces from Rogue One. I remember characters, at least visually, and things that they did from Rogue One. And this was technically the second movie to come out after Force Awakens. They were working on it before Force Awakens even came out. So to them, it's like they're making the first Star Wars movie since I think Revenge of the Sith. So it's like, I just don't buy it because, again, I always say this, one of the most depressing books I own is the art for Force Awakens.
No, you're right. It's not really a good enough excuse. It never was in the first place. And I think ultimately it just came down to JJ being uncreative in every way imaginable. That was the real reason why that was there. And the excuse that was being parroted was, oh, they wanted to go retro with it. No.
The punchline to that is, it's like, I'm like you, it's like, okay, I'll give this pass. And then going forward, we're doing new shit. And then they brought him back for Rise of Skywalker. And what does he do? He does Tatooine again. He does Hoth again. He does I don't even know what the last
Return of the
planet was.
Jedi again.
He does Return of the Jedi again. He does everything the same again, only with like no thematic purpose. Like he fights to he has puzzle pieces that don't fit into the movie he wants to make, but he just squishes them down to make them fit. That's the reason the whole time you have like Finn be like, I need to tell you something the whole movie. And it's like he's trying to tell him he's a Jedi. That makes no fucking sense. Or he's force sensitive. That makes no fucking sense. They think they're dying. If I'm dying, my last confession to you isn't going to be like, I'm force sensitive. What the fuck does that matter if I'm dead? That's why everyone's like, oh, he's trying to confess his love. Because that's the only reasonable thing you would do in that kind of situation. Not be like, actually, I can move shit with my mind too. I'm sorry.
We got lost in the Star Wars thing. It's our fault for even bringing it up in the first place. Once we start, we cannot stop with this. So, my apologies for that. I mean, I agree with you, Peter, but that's like if we continue down this road, we're never going to come back.
We're not going to stop. Yeah.
So anyway, I was saying
Romulus.
that my fears was because of all this that we just mentioned, right? And there was some specific moments that were causing people to not only, be disappointed, but be enraged by it. And so I gotta tell you, part of me, by the way, part of me got a little nervous.
I dropped something. Sorry.
No, okay. Part of me got a little nervous because look, there are actually a number of things on paper. If I'm reading the screenplay to the movie and I'm like, okay, I think in execution, in some cases it's different. But for example, I was laughing and got a little bit nervous simultaneously when the movie opens. And we literally start off with the wreckage of the Nostromo, which was the ship from the first movie.
That is very Force Awakens.
And they not only are we there for, but they actually have the brilliant idea to take the frozen carcass of the original xenomorph, and then they take it back to do more experimentations on it. I was like, oh, okay. I don't think we needed to do that. We needed to go that hard with it. Like, it had to be the specific one. And it also
same one, yeah.
When you think about it like too hard, okay, that kind of throws things out of loop with what happens in Aliens. Because they fired basically Ripley for something that they don't believe would actually happen. Remember at the beginning of the film, they're like, what do you mean there was an alien thing? There was no evidence found, but the same company went back and fished the thing. But also, how could they possibly have known? Unless Ash, I don't know. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't bother me too much. I just thought it was funny how that's where we begin the movie. Like, oh boy.
Well, apparently the company didn't even know about this fucking situation because the whole space station fucking died and was just floating off in space, and the company didn't know, or no one was checking up on them. Like, to me, the way I wrap my head around it is just, this is a galaxy-wide spanning corporation where it's like, there's just too many people, right? And too many levels of like executives and going up and going down, where it's too much for information to get that far anywhere. You know what I mean? It's just too much going on. I don't know if that's a cop out, but also, who cares?
Yes, I agree with both points, but I bring it up because I was like, uh-oh. It got me a little bit like...
especially after the negative things you hear, and it's like, this is the way we're starting. It's like, I can see where the worst movie ever could come from that opening. You know what I mean? Because Force Awakens literally was going to start with Luke Skywalker's severed hand. Remember? That was how it was going to start, holding the lightsaber, like, floating through space. And then, like, lands on a planet. I don't think they had any idea what they were going to do after that. I think they just really liked the visual of starting with his severed hand floating through space. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, so that was the part where I was like, oh, okay, what's happening here? But I think I was really delighted because the rest that transpired really, to me, ended up amounting to a true film.
Yeah, it felt like a real movie.
And I feel like, you said yourself walking out of it, like, I feel like it's sad that we're at the point where we're giving away flowers for that, but we kind of have to.
It was shot like a movie and written like a movie.
And it feels and looks and sounds like an actual film.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we're at a state where too many of them aren't made to look or feel or sound that way. And so when we have one that I could feel immediately from the first frames, and literally every single frame of this movie, that not only did we have somebody that was capable behind the camera that was guiding this, but someone who obviously loved the franchise and loved the aesthetic of the original movies, but had also the know-how and the talent behind to create beautiful looking imagery. The photography
it was really
of this
beautifully
film
put together.
The photography, just the cinematography, that's what I mean. Gorgeous. The lighting. There's a shot of what's her name? I know it's Kaylee Spain, but what's her main character's name?
Rain.
Rain. When she's looking out, when she wakes up from that dream and she's looking out the window, and half of it's like covered in some kind of like
it's like
blinders.
blinds. Yeah.
But just that to me felt like a shot out of Blade Runner. Is how good it looked.
Oh yeah.
And then even the aesthetic of the planet that we were on totally felt like Blade Runner itself.
Well,
when they're going,
cool is you can tell that wasn't a very big set, but the way that they used it worked so well. Where it's like you couldn't really tell, like it felt like a much larger, but you could tell it's like they used a small portion of like a street basically for that entire mining type colony, and you just got so much storytelling in a short amount of time in that short amount of real estate, and it visually looked really cool and really well done.
Even when they go up into space and they see sunlight, which is something the planet something about it, like they can't see it because it's covering it, but when you see the sunlight on them, that was beautiful work of imagery there. But also at the same time, just some things that I'm noticing here. Fede was able to bring back the horror in a lot of ways. For once, it is a horror film. It's like the first traditional alien horror film in like since the original. It's the most like I mean if you consider the similarities and structurally speaking, it's a movie that takes its time building toward the horror, and it reminds you a lot of the first Alien film. At the same time, he found a way to make space scary again. Like, to me, and so not a J.J. Abrams to do, which was to make anything creative or interesting or new, the fact that we're at a planet and that the rings around the planet come into force
into play.
Here. They come into play.
That's really, really cool.
With an imminent danger, has how the whole station is at drift and it's going to be counting down to, collapsing. And then we actually see it, and we see how cool that looks, and what that would look like is just visually speaking, like he's got it, and the film has it, and it's beautiful to look at. It all comes together. The stagecraft, the production design. I know that Ridley didn't care about how his movies were so far technologically more advanced and digital, not in how they were made. Well, yeah, too, but more so in like how the scientists,
the aesthetics of
the technology, what they had there was far more advanced than what the crew of the Nostromo had. The movies that were made in the 80s. But Fede was like, he brought it back to make it feel like, no, this fits totally. If you watch Alien and Aliens, this goes hand in hand with it, because the tech is, and the aesthetic of the tech. I mean, we begin the movie with the noise of the ship, waking up, the sound design, the sound of, we have switches that we see and the camera looks at, and we hear what they sound when you press them.
And
the clicksing of them, the analog looking computer monitors on there. Like, I love that stuff. And I mean, more so than it fits in with the other movies, it just looks great to look at.
Yeah, it's really visually interesting and aesthetically pleasing. It's cool. It really sets the tone for this world. I like when they do that sort of retro futuristic stuff where it looks like it's 100,000 years in the future, but also with technology that's well past due date. that mesh of two different things, I think really works well.
Yeah, and I love the look of the Romulus station. I love the fact that we have practical effects in here as well. The aliens are back in here. Actual people wearing them. Other creatures, shall we say, were actually built up. And yeah, and also this might be the best use of horror. So a good amount of horror here and there, but the face huggers. I think to me, where like the best they've ever been used as far as like terror is concerned. You even learned a little bit new about them, about how they work as well. But that just basically turned them into like huge spiders.
Yeah. That's where I'm saying they took a lot of familiar stuff, but did cool new things with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like, because we've seen many alien films before, and the thing is like, well, why another? What new stuff can you do with them? And I think for every major sequence, they tried to do new twists on classic creatures, and then a new creature.
Also, this film does not slack when it comes to action sequences that I feel are not just great to look at, but memorable too. I feel like, it has been a very long time in this franchise where something new was brought to the table in this regard. Like we mentioned that sequence of them running away from like the face huggers. To me, the standout was the gravity sequence, anti-gravity sequence.
Yeah, that was really cool.
When the aliens are all charging, and then the use of the blood, and then it's even extended into the elevator, and then turning off the anti-gravity stuff. Granted, there's a moment in there that kind of brings everything down, but we're gonna put that to the side. And just the sequence itself is memorable and that alone is worth watching this movie for, let alone everything else that happens. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Not for nothing, I gotta say, while to me it's really maybe the hardest part of these movies is making the crew likable and making you feel bad. Because part of why it's important to make them likable is when they're dead and when they get killed, you want to feel something. You are correct. And in Prometheus and in Covenant, he didn't give a fuck because he didn't like them to begin with. Here, you start off from a place where it primes you to sympathize with them and their plight. They're not scientists. They're just normal working class people who have been abused by corporations the entire span of their lives. And by the way, that means this movie's woke. Guess what? All movies are woke, assholes. So, but I'm not hearing any go woke, go broke notions happening out there. I wonder why. All of a sudden, that doesn't seem to be a factor for these people.
That's right. All movies are woke. That Reagan movie, woke.
So, but we begin, and they're young people too, and they're looking for a place to start off anew. So it gets you primed to care about their plight and themselves. Granted, there's not much meat on the bone, to be fair, but I don't think there really was needed more. I
think there's enough. I really like all the setup with the characters.
Well, I gotta say, you caught some things that I didn't catch. Everybody was like, I knew that was his baby. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I watched that movie twice. I didn't catch that once. And I'm like, really? But I didn't catch that at all. But when you said it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I can kind of see that. Yeah. And maybe it was hinting that, but I couldn't catch on to that part.
But I kind of like when things are implied about characters but never directly stated, because it's not necessarily important to the direct actions of the story going on right now, because it gives the characters the feeling of depth, right? Like there's more to them just outside the screen, Because sometimes characters feel like they exist just for the movie, right?
Yeah.
And you don't believe that they would exist once the cameras are off, right?
Right.
But little stuff like that makes it feel like, okay, there's more going on here, even before we meet them ourselves.
I think the biggest compliment I can give that group is that they felt like real people.
Yeah. I really liked the whole crew. It's not a lot of them. It's just a handful.
Right.
But I mean, the main characters that you're supposed to care about, and you absolutely do, and it works, are Rain and her brother.
Andy, right?
Andy, yeah. So those two work 100%.
Yeah.
Everyone
I didn't
else
even, yeah.
is
They're
a little
serviceable.
They're serviceable, but in a way that I very much works for me, I think.
For sure. I forgot to even mention, Andy is like the best part of this movie.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
Like, whoa.
The
Like,
synthetics
so
are keeping
good.
are the franchise up, basically.
Seriously, at this point.
No, Andy's a great character. Everything with him is so great. Because it kind of takes a while before you get your first dose of alien in the film, but everything leading up, I really enjoyed. Like, just
David Johnson's the actor that plays Andy.
He's great. He's great in the film. Like, seeing his relationship between him and Rain.
And he's playing two different characters, basically.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I had a few more oh shit moments with him that I had even with the alien towards the beginning, the first half of the film. And it's like, oh, this is really interesting to see, just to see how this character is. No, but so like, the stuff that needs to work, I think 100% does work.
Yeah.
And it's like, the stuff that isn't, it's not like, oh, the greatest ever. It's still more than serviceable, at least to me, I think, as far as the characters go.
No, for sure. There is one more thing that works really, really well. And it may, in some cases, for some people, might be the thing that works the most well. And in this situation, if you haven't seen the movie, I strongly recommend you don't listen any further, because this is something you want to see for yourself. You don't want to hear us talk about it. You want to see it for yourself. So Alexis or David, because you're the only ones that even listen to this, if you haven't seen Romulus and want to, stop listening here, because you need to see it to believe it. So beginning now. When I first saw the movie, that third act reveal, and I had been in some ways anticipating it, because there had been some people who were talking about it, but they were talking about it in a critical lens, that they weren't crazy about it. So I was like really nervous to see what was happening. I was reading some reactions that were saying that they were really digging the movie up until that moment, and it kind of ruined it for them. And I find that particularly crazy, because when I saw it, I'm like, it didn't ruin the movie at all for me. But I was just like, whoa. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. I was just kind of in shock as to like, oh, we're going this bonkers, or the, you know, and
yeah,
then,
we're taking it this far.
and I'm like, and the thing is, before, because they kind of telegraphed that, and
It was
like
pretty telegraphed where they're going.
Yeah, they telegraphed that, so it's like, are they really gonna do that? And then they do, and like, oh shit, here we are. Both times I saw it, when it's revealed, you heard audible, like, people in the back in your audience going like, what the fuck? Or like,
there was like gasps and like, what the fuck is that? Yeah, every time it's revealed. And by the way, this is where I think the talent of someone like what do you call
Fede
Alvarez, and this is where I'm saying where it's like, we complain about Marvel, we complain about these other franchises, where it's like, get an established director. I'm not saying get like the most Academy Award winning director, but get someone that knows his shit, that can make a fucking movie and get them to make these films, because that reveal is so well done. Like, he creates suspense perfectly. The way like Isabel, is it Mercy or something?
yeah.
She like the way she really good acting, where like she notices him and her eyes sort of go white and wide, and then the sound drops, and like he turns around, and then you just see him like for a flash of light, like just turning curious in the corner of the tunnel, like terrifying. So well done. And that's what I'm saying, where like a lesser director wouldn't have executed that moment as well. But I don't know if you've seen like behind the scenes footage. It's 100% practical.
I saw an image of it and I'm like, wow.
There's like a video of like him just chilling, talking to the director, and I'm like, oh, like none of this was. This is just what you see on the screen.
See that
was
anymore.
Just him. That's like so scary.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool that on top of like adopting the aesthetics of those 80s movies, they even were treating it, in at least some aspects anyway, as if it were made in that time, because like you don't see that anymore. No. Like practical stuff, especially for a character that big.
Well, not just for him, but like just to go back to like the face huggers.
Yeah,
they're so obviously puppets.
Yeah,
like the way they move on the hind legs, and one scurries around, and it's very clearly like on like an RC motor or something. Like, but that, of course, there's CG moments with it too, but they're all tools, right? If you have a moment where it's going to be up and close and you can do it practical, they very much did it, and it was really cool. And then I saw so many people going like, holy shit, I thought he was CG, he was real, that's a person. Because that's just like it's like a 7-8 individual with like makeup and like prosthetics and stuff. Terrifying. I dig the third act.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Again, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, a lot of it does go down memory lane with a lot of Alien, but it's executed very well, and there's a lot of new twists along the way of stuff we've already seen that keeps me into it. And I do care about these new characters and their new plight and everything that's going on with them. And all of that works, yeah.
And because it works so well, the whole film works, despite some drawbacks, which I suspect we're now going to go ahead and begin to mention.
We have to.
One thing that I thought was quite interesting is that because when we think about the timeline in the universe, not that these things matter all that much, but okay, just for the sake of it. This takes place after Alien Covenant, Alien, and Prometheus. I thought it was kind of curious how they were able to bring in the whole Prometheus element here of the goo. I think it's the same goo that was from Prometheus and Covenant, correct? The whole situation with the fact that what even created that monster in the first place is that they were able to. The idea is that they were trying to make humans more indestructible, like the xenomorph, and so that's why they were, and they even called it the Prometheus blood or drug or whatever it was, right?
Oh, see, that's another element to the film that I liked. I liked the reasoning for investigating the alien.
Me
because
too.
In the original movies, Alien and Aliens, it's like, we're gonna make weapons. That's kind of the go-to with a lot of these. Like, they even did it with Jurassic Park. We're gonna make dinosaur weapons. Remember with Dominion, where it's like, we're gonna point a laser pointer at someone and we're gonna train them to attack. And it's like, the military aspect is always kind of
lame.
It's lame. But what I really liked, and again, it thematically works with who these characters are, why they're trying to escape their situation, is this idea of like, humans have gone out into the universe and colonized too much and too far, and they're kind of just dying off. Like, every season, they weren't built for space, basically. Humans weren't built for it, and they're having a tough time now surviving because, new diseases, shitty oversight by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, you know. And the reason for their obsession with the alien is because in their minds it's the perfect specimen in the way it's able to survive everything. So they want to sort of do their fucked up experiments to pass that survivability onto human beings and sort of continue their colonization of the universe. And that to me is thematically more interesting. It works a lot better in my eyes. But to the black goo, it's not the exact same black goo. I think it's like they recreated the black goo from like synthesizing it from the DNA of the alien. It's not like they found the black goo like they did in Prometheus. They just kind of found it. Here they like synthesized it from the DNA of the alien and sort of like I guess recreated it.
It's connected to the movies because I mean I guess as they reveal, the alien was created by or recreated by the engineers, correct?
It's connected in that way.
It's because I know that the engineers' home planet, they have like a mural with a creature that looks like a xenomorph, and then you can
this is one of those things where I just throw my hands up and go, I don't care, it don't matter. Again, this is one of the things where I say it's more interesting where if this was just a random creature in the universe, that humankind just happened to stumble upon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's more terrifying. That works better.
But now we're at the point where it's like, oh, it's created by the android, who was created by the humans, who are created by the engineers, who were trying to create
random black goo that does something different every single time it's used. There's no consistency to the black goo. It recreates alien-like creatures, but then where do we get the alien queen? Where do we get like the fact that it grows eggs? Like it's bullshit, all of it. That stuff I don't think about because I think it's dumb to begin with, and who cares? The alien is. The alien just is.
It just is. Yeah, I agree with you there. So that might be one of the last aspects to here that works well. And then we have to talk about the things that don't work as well here. Which one would you want to go for first?
Let's go for the big one first, because the obvious big one is the return of a certain character from the original. Well, it's not the same character. It's an actor from the original that plays a similar character, but he has long since been dead. So he is recreated using digital trickery that looks like dog shit and AI voice. And it's one of those things where it's like the movie is doing so many things correct in, you know, the way it's trying to be this film, this throwback film with its practical effects, with its visual language. And then they do something that's like maybe the worst I've seen it done ever. Like people think like the Rogue One shit was bad. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I think the worst is maybe the Ghostbusters Afterlife digital recreate. That one was probably the worst. But this is pretty bad. Flash? Oh my god, yeah. Nothing's worse than the Flash. That one made me angry. That's like borderline evil. I don't know. Like that was bad. But this one was pretty bad. It's tough because it's like the character itself, usually when it's done, there's no reason for it other than to insert an old actor. Here, the character itself works. I'm cool with the character in of itself existing in this role. It's just all the more frustrating of why you just chose to bring back this actor. Completely unnecessary. Because it's not even the same character. It's just the actor. This would have been perfect to bring in a new actor to play a new synthetic, where maybe you're a little unsure of his intentions as well. So it's this back and forth of like cat and mouse game. You don't know what's going on, but because you specifically make it this actor, you signal to the audience he's already dangerous and can't be trusted. You know what I mean? Even if it's a different character technically. So I easily the worst decision in the whole film. and it kind of brings it down every time it's brought up again within the film, which is kind of a lot. More than I thought it would be, I'll put it that way.
I was surprised how much of the movie he was in.
Yeah.
When I saw him laying on the floor before they reveal, I was thinking, does that look like... Oh my god, don't tell me they did. But I think they were... And then they ended up doing the thing that I was suspecting, and I'm like, oh
Bilbo
no.
Baggins.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No. No, I don't really like any of it.
Yeah, no.
It's
just
feel
a
like
bad decision.
It really is. I don't care if the family okayed it. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
one
it
of the
makes
things I realized too. Even with
Yeah.
the okay, it just feels wrong to me. It's still ugly.
It just feels like you had such the correct instincts for everything else, and then this was just. I think you were right when you said, "Well, what about Michael Fassbender?"
That would have been cool, especially because you're tying it back to the Black Goo. Like fuck it, it could have been David. You know, you could have said like Weyland-Yutani found his ass and basically kept him captured. Took all instead of recapturing the aliens from the first movie, he could say that they captured all his alien eggs from Covenant, right? Because remember, it ends with him leaving on a spaceship with a bunch of eggs, with a bunch of face huggers, and like being like, "I'm off to do dastardly deeds." And you can just have it where the Weyland-Yutani Corporation found him, captured him, confiscated his shit, and then they fucked up, and then this is that station. You know what I mean? You could have done something like that. Or, which I think is even better, just have a new synthetic, a new actor to come in and do a twist on it. Yeah. There are a couple of other moments in the film with that same just shitty thought process, I guess.
People had an issue with
Instincts.
like the I guess they recreated the Michael Biehn Ripley scene of him showing her how to like use a gun.
Yeah, they kind of did. It's similar enough to where it's like, okay, we're doing this, basically.
And then at the end of the third act, where Kaylee Spaney puts on the spacesuit before.
Yeah, the third act is Alien. It becomes Alien again.
Yeah.
But the new creature is so cool, you can kind of overlook it. And everything they're doing with like what do you call it? Like like you said, the rings in space, how they're slowly crashing into the rings.
Yeah.
There's enough little cool things where it's so well put together where I'm like, all right, I'm into it. But it's like, yeah, you're doing Alien again, where especially because it doesn't help that Kaylee Spaney again. It's sort of like in Star Wars where every female protagonist they get looks like Leia, looks like it's like every female protagonist they get just kind of looks like it's your lily white, black hair, white top, kind of undies thing going on, short hair. They're going for a Ripley thing every time, and it would have worked a lot better if you were doing the same thing, but you're against type in character, you know, someone that looks completely different. But Kaylee Spaney's awesome, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's the whole thing of like she slowly gets into the suit and then has to shoot him out of the ship. It's like, oh, you think the movie's over and they're gonna sleep peacefully, and then even at the end where it's like last living survivor of the such and such. And it's like, that's kind of a fucked up thing to say. You're saying your brother's not alive after that whole shit you went through together where you're sort of committed to each other like you're both alive. But it's like, no, the reason she said that is because that's the same shit that Ripley said at the end of Alien. And you gotta match it and stuff. To be fair, they do that in Aliens too. So it's we were having the discussion of like, what is simply part of the DNA of these films in a franchise, and what is like lame callback. And I guess it depends on the person.
It would be clear on what it was if they didn't go so hard in some areas.
Yeah, some places they very clearly like, get away from her, you bitch. That was I almost groaned I almost groaned in the theater. I think I remember I just turned to you and went like, you get it? He said the line. That was, honestly, I might hate that more than AI, fucking synthetic. That was the point that really just made me go, no. Especially because that was a pretty good moment, you know? And it was just so undercut by that bullshit.
That moment that you just mentioned, that's what I was referring to earlier, where it kind of almost brings the whole thing down. I gotta be honest with you. That moment is so bad. Not only does it almost bring down that stellar sequence, it almost brings down the whole movie. Because, I'm not even kidding when I tell you this. Like, yes, I think the Flash recreating people, that was more evil and disgusting than it was embarrassing. This right here just might be a new low. Like, it was unbelievably embarrassing. I felt embarrassed just sitting there and listening to that. I felt embarrassed for them, and I felt embarrassed for myself. And anybody that had anything to do with it, because I was like, it wasn't just the exact same line. It also just was the delivery. Get away from her, you bitch.
Yeah, he also does like the and I told you, like the whole movie, they're doing dad jokes. He should have done a dad joke. That would have. Oh man.
I tell you, that's why. I mean, it felt so unnatural to everything else that was going on. Granted, we have been talking about already, there are moments where they went too far and they were trying to recreate the past. But like I told Peter here, to me, this felt like Fede called in sick and they needed somebody to come in and shoot for the day, and Kevin Feige happened to be around. And if there was one thing that he did to contribute to the film, it would be this, because this is a made-for stand-up clapping Saturday Night Live moment where it was like and also how it was shot, where he said the line and then the whole thing just kind of stood still waiting for applause, like what happens in a Marvel movie.
Applause moment, yeah. Oh god, dude, that's one of the worst aspects of modern film, where they put that pause like for applause, for like, you remember these things, right? Because it's not even for a character moment. It's like a real character moment. It's about reminding you of things you've already seen. And that's the thing. So if you had told me those things were in the movie beforehand, I'd be like, oh my, yeah, 100% this movie's gonna suck. I get where people are coming from. But when I watched it, they were definitely there. They were just there a lot less than I feel like people are making them out.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you.
I can't deny they're there, right? And they are bad, but it to me, they were not there nearly enough to overshadow the total experience.
Yeah, but I feel like patience has worn thin on those elements. That
for sure, yeah.
For a lot of people, it's enough to ruin the whole thing.
If this came out 2015, no one would be bitching. No one would be. There would be zero complaints. But because
like what we said last year, if Dial of Destiny came out 2015,
yeah, for sure. There's a lot of movies where I'm like I said, the timing. It's just the timing. If you had come out any sooner, any later. But that's why it's always interesting to revisit films with time.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like people deciding the fate of films and its legacy opening weekend. I think that's crazy, because so many films aren't their legacy isn't determined until decades later.
Yes.
And then it's always sort of constantly evolving. That's really cool. Art is alive in that way. Films are alive.
I feel even if they had tweaked it, where if he had just said, get away from her, I think they would have gotten away with it. They would have gotten, I feel like, if they had just done that. But the you bitch part just feels like that he wouldn't say that.
That feels kind of like blue balls, though.
Oh,
I think,
yeah.
You know what might have been better if he's just like, get away from her, and you tell he's like starting to say you bitch, and then like the alien fucking stabs him or something with its tail, right? And like cuts him off from being able to say it. And it's like, okay, you're playing. It's kind of you're
That
playing.
would have
with it
worked
a
so
little
much
bit.
better. That would have worked.
I-
Period. Yeah.
Yeah. But the way it was done, it was just the worst of all worlds. Not great.
Yeah, I really hope people who are making movies would take a page from this and not do it. But I also just feel like, I don't know. There are plenty of people out there who probably were enthusiastic about that moment and did stand up and clap for it. And I'm like,
There always is gonna be those people.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I still come out positive.
Oh, yeah,
and
for
enjoying the
sure.
experience. Yeah.
I'm very much positive and enthusiastic about this film,
Yeah.
despite the fact that there are things that make me want to wring someone's neck.
Yeah. Not every, again, with the way the internet, not every movie is the best movie ever, worst movie ever. There's so many different. There's a spectrum.
I feel like
as far as
most
how you
movies
can-
are a collection of good things and bad things.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Not everything's an instant classic where you think everything's perfect, and not everything is the biggest piece of shit. Films are art, and it's a collection of human experiences, and humans are imperfect, so that's usually what you're going to get. But that's what makes them awesome, worth engaging with. Fuck AI.
Yeah.
Fuck AI when it comes to like art stuff. I'm not against these technologies when it's like interesting. Like I saw some other story where it's like AI will help detect cancer earlier. For sure. Use AI for that. Don't use it to try and write scripts or make movies, because that's not where it should be.
Anything creatively written, I would avoid using it for. But if there's something you need to, if it's mundane and easy, go for
if
it.
we're making cars safer or helping land spaceships on the moon and other planets, and AI helps in that way.
If you've written a paper and if you want to have it corrected, copy and paste it in there. Or some people would go a whole step further and just have it write it for you.
See, that's where I draw my line, but
Which part?
have it write the whole thing for you.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, because it's like the whole point of writing and stuff like this. The whole point of art is that it comes from humans, or at the very least,
Yes.
thinking beings, and not algorithms. Like if you're excited about replacing the human aspect of art, it's like,
No.
I don't know. That feels so. Do you have a soul? Like that's so. Why do you even like movies? Why do you even like? And I think a lot of people don't. They just it's weird. That's weird.
They don't like movies. They like videos. That's a whole different thing. I remember.
Yeah.
God, years ago we were watching
Fuck
the
you, Mr. Beast.
We were watching. Oh yeah, we were watching the Jungle Cruise. And there was a scene where Emily Blunt, I think, was explaining why she how a camera works, and then a kid somewhere behind us was like, "So like a video," out loud.
Technically, yes.
That's true, but like that right there was such a telling comment, because that should tell you like, okay, well the video comes first and movies are secondary. And that's why it's like, you know what,
well, it's the way people talk about it's like it's content. It's not art. It's content. It's not film. It's content. It's not cinema, right? And I think that's where a lot of the entitlement comes from, because it's people are so like business brained, where it's like, it's content. You are supposed to satisfy me. You didn't give me exactly what I thought I wanted, so fuck you. Yeah, it's. Whereas I just hate that thinking.
Yeah.
In the broad sense, it's not great.
Anything else to say?
No. I think it's good that we talked about two good movies for once, because it was a mostly positive.
When was the
podcast.
last time we did that?
I feel like we usually talk about like when good, when bad. or one bad, or one good.
Technically, this is the most positive review we've had on the show since Challengers.
Yeah, it's only downhill from here. Well, we're gonna hit into Oscar season, and we're gonna see some fun stuff.
There's some things I've already been hearing about that they sound pretty cool, but like I mentioned already before, I'm just a little bit like deterred by getting myself. The thing is this:
investment. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I am hopeful in that none of the people who I am all in for are up for anything this year, and in which case I hope that leads me from not getting too emotionally invested to where I'm not like devastated. That being said, I already am at the point where like there are 3 films that I'm so passionate about. I've already mentioned them, and at this point they're not in the conversation. Okay.
Yeah. It's the way these things go.
Yeah, I do. And so
that's why I like Oscar season, just because that's when they release
good movies, really good movies.
They release a lot of good movies. And that's always something to be excited for.
As a matter of fact, before we leave today, are there any films from last season that you intend to catch up on before a whole new season? I believe you still have not seen Past Lives or Perfect Days, correct?
I still need to see Past Lives. I'm interested in seeing All of Us Strangers. Perfect Days for sure. Mm-hmm. For sure.
All 3 of those are really good movies. All 3 of those you mentioned.
Yeah. No, I believe it. I got a lot to catch up.
No, I believe you do. I know you do have a lot to catch up on. But when you do, and I would hope it would be soon, because I don't think I know that David and Alexis have seen Past Lives. They've not seen Strangers or Perfect Days, but and I believe at the same time you do need to, in some instance, prioritize it, because as you said a few months back, that December 2024 is when we want to have our best of 2023 come out, right? That's something we want to do. So
yes. Well, I'm trying to catch up with 24. So it's like
I might need to wait, because I think that unless you want to do the best of 2023 when we're in 2025,
it would be very on brand. No. I'm catching up. Well, it's funny because the other day I looked at my letterbox and I was like, I have like a list of like maybe 10 for 2024. I don't even think I started the list for 2023. I gotta go back and see what movies I've seen.
I have a list of about 100 movies, over 100 movies from 2023.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, I gotta go back and see. I know I've seen a handful, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what's the next one on the map, on the release schedule, but whatever. We listed off a whole bunch of titles already.
That are gonna come out
in the near future. I don't know which is the next big one that comes out.
Beetlejuice.
Oh yes. Oh, I'm sorry. But I meant after Beetlejuice. Yes. So
after that,
is it already coming out this week?
The 6th, Thursday.
Jesus.
That's why I said you have before Thursday to see it.
Okay. Yeah,
because I can't do Friday.
What do you mean? Can't? You mean Thursday? You want to go see it?
Well, I can't do Friday.
You saying Thursday? You want to go see it because you can't?
That was implicit. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little older now, Peter. It's a little harder for me to process.
We can all see.
Okay.
We all have eyes.
So, that's why I need to be perfectly clear, because the last thing I would want is to allow any kind of miscommunication on the show.
Well, of course.
Because
that never happens.
It's not like I would like promise to go see a movie with you, and then never follow up on it, and then it turns out I went to go see it with somebody else. Or it's not like, I promised.
Well, you always do that.
Oh, it's not like I promised to, go to a Starbucks run, and then by the end of the month, and then the month is over and then you hear nothing back from them. So not at all pulling from real life things happening.
You're talking about someone else now.
So at that point, it's time to close the
here
show.
we go.
Thank you so much, Peter, for being here today. We appreciated your commentary, as we always do. I hope that you make sure to keep count in this instance, because you evidently say that there was not a single time I can introduce you and it has a kind of backhanded compliment or insult. I guess that's true, whatever. This is one of the first times that we haven't done that, so I want to make sure that this is pointed out to you. So there's
I guess
that.
You're softening in your very old age.
It would appear so. As a reminder for Red Spotters, we got some content coming out for you that is a little bit spooky related in the next couple of weeks. Some of them may include some spooky movie reactions, and then anything else that we have here on our shows. So stay tuned for more content, and we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.